So I woke up this morning, stared at the fancy eagle embroidered on my bed curtains, and had my daily existential crisis. 14 years. 14 whole years since I, a perfectly normal military academy guy from Earth, got yeeted into a baby's body on some fantasy continent called Lafabranca. Look, when people say new life, new me, they don't usually mean it this literally. My name's Lin En now, son of Duke Frederick Solbright, one of the 5 most powerful families in the clan kingdom. We got a massive castle called Silver Eagle Fortress, a private army, and enough political drama to fill 10 seasons of a TV show. Dad's official title is Guardian of the Southern Border, which sounds cool until you realize it means he never sleeps and always looks angry. 3 knocks on my door, perfectly timed like a military drill. That's Wilson, our head butler. This old man irons his underwear, I'm convinced. Every wrinkle on his suit is calculated with mathematical precision. He walks in with a whole parade of maids carrying silver washing bowls and freshly pressed clothes, like I'm some kind of celebrity getting ready for a red carpet. Your father wants to see you after breakfast. In the study. Oh, Dad never does formal summons. We usually just grunt at each other over dinner. This is like getting called to the principal's office, except the principal commands thousands of soldiers and could probably bench press a horse. I casually asked Wilson how Dad's mood has been lately. The old man's fingers froze on my button for exactly half a second, which in butler language is basically screaming, "We're all gonna die." Turns out the old king is basically on his deathbed, and his princes are fighting like cats in a bag. And my dad, the guy sitting on the biggest army in the South, every prince is sending love letters trying to win him over. Fun times. I checked myself in the mirror. Dark gold hair, silver gray eyes, classic soul-bright look. I'm not even 14 yet, but I'm already tall as a 17-year-old. Partly genetics, partly because I've been secretly training with swords since I could walk. When you know you're living in a medieval fantasy world, you don't skip arm day. Ever. Wilson mentioned the horse teacher got a new purebred foal for me to look at. Cool. Also mentioned bandits near Black Pine Forest have been acting up again. Not cool. Dad apparently had a war council about it that lasted until midnight. Here's the thing. If these were regular bandits, my dad would have squashed them in a weekend. The fact that they're still around means someone powerful is feeding them money and information. My military academy brain is tingling. After breakfast, I walked through the hallway of ancestor portraits, all of them staring at me like, "Don't mess this up, kid," and arrived at Dad's study. 8 fully armored guards standing outside like decorative statues. They saluted me with a satisfying metal clank. Inside, Dad was hunched over a military map like a man possessed. Silver streaks in his gold hair, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. The map had red marks all over the border, and Black Pine Forest was circled with a note, "Suspected Shadow Wolf Bandit Group, Shadow Wolf." Even the name sounds like someone with money picked it. Then Dad hit me with it. If you were a lord, how would you handle these bandits? Oh, this isn't a casual father-son chat. This is a job interview. Fine. I've been pretending to be a normal, gifted kid for 14 years, reading military books, a little faster than average, and asking surprisingly good questions in class. Time to stop playing dumb. Well, stop playing mostly dumb. I dropped my voice about 2 octaves lower than any 13-year-old should manage and went full military briefing mode. Step 1. Figure out who's really behind them. Bandits don't survive on a major border for months without a sponsor. Either a local noble is backing them, or a neighboring country is pulling the strings. Dad's eyebrow twitched. That's basically a standing ovation from him. If it's a noble, I'd cut off their supply lines and politically pressure them. Get other lords to join in. Nobody wants to be the guy defending bandits at the next council meeting. And if it's a foreign country? Dad asked, face completely blank. This man could win poker against a statue. Ambush the trade routes. Send elite soldiers disguised as merchant caravans, basically human bait. Catch one alive, squeeze them for information, find the hideout. I tapped Black Pine Forest on the map. And arm the border villages. Train their militias. Make every village a porcupine. Painful to touch, not worth the trouble. Dad just stared at me. I stared back. Somewhere outside, a soldier dropped his sword and got yelled at. I think I just accidentally revealed I'm way too smart for a kid who supposedly just reads a lot. Whoops. Dad stared at me for what felt like 17 years. I could practically hear dramatic courtroom music playing. Then he finally said, not bad. Which in dad language translates to, I'm genuinely shocked and mildly terrified by my teenage son. He pulled out a fancy wooden box and slid it across the desk like we were doing a spy movie dead drop. Your birthday's next month, but I might be leaving the territory for a while. Early present. Inside was a dagger. And not some cheap tourist souvenir dagger. This thing had our family's silver eagle crest carved into the sheath, and the blade came out gleaming like it wanted to personally introduce itself to someone's ribcage. Definitely made by a master craftsman. Thanks, Dad, I said, trying to sound normal and not like a grown man internally screaming, cool knife, cool knife, cool knife. Then Dad walked to the window, did his dramatic staring at mountains pose, and dropped the bombshell. Lin En, you're more mature than other kids your age. That's good because a storm is coming. The Soulbright family needs a stronger heir. Okay. When your warrior Duke father starts talking about storms and heirs while giving you weapons early, that's not heartwarming. That's terrifying. This dagger suddenly felt less like a birthday present and more like a, just in case I die, parting gift. My knuckles went white gripping it. Starting tomorrow, come to my study every afternoon. I'll personally teach you territory and military management. Then his face snapped back to cold Duke mode like someone flipped a switch, and he told me to go to sword class. Emotional moment over. Back to business. This man has the emotional range of a light switch. On and OFF, nothing in between. I walked out with my brain running at full speed. Royal messengers everywhere. Border bandits that won't go away. Dad suddenly fast-tracking my education like there's a deadline. Every puzzle piece was screaming the same thing. Something really bad is coming, and Dad's not sure he'll be around to handle it. No pressure for the 14-year-old with a past life, right? Ha ha. Sword training time. The training yard was basically a frying pan, sun blasting down on stone tiles, heat waves dancing everywhere. I was dripping sweat like a broken faucet. My sword teacher Leo. Imagine a bear that learned to use a sword and grew a magnificent beard. Came at me screaming. Again, his wooden sword shot at my left shoulder like an angry snake. I dodged by literally 1 inch. 1 inch. But did I panic and flail like a normal kid? No. I went full patient mode. Wait. Watch. Breathe. My past life taught me that patience beats raw power every time. Your defense is too passive, Leo roared, launching a combo attack. His wooden sword was making actual whooshing sounds in the air. Enemies won't give you time to think. 3 brutal chops came flying at me. I blocked every single one like I had a script of his moves. Then on his 4th swing, when his power dipped just slightly, I struck. Fake right. He bit on it, moved to block. I redirected mid-swing. My wooden sword stopped half an inch from his throat. Dead silence on the training ground. Just 2 guys breathing like they ran a marathon. Leo's eyes went wide, then he smiled. Very good, Lin En. Your progress is surprising. Your reaction speed and judgment are beyond your age group. Beyond my age group? Buddy, I have 40-something years of combined life experience. I should hope I'm beyond the 13-year-old bracket. But honestly, Leo's never seen talent like mine in all his years teaching noble kids. He said the only thing I'm missing compared to real sword masters is battlefield experience. Which, I'm sure the universe will helpfully provide whether I want it or not. I decided to stop holding back. If Dad says a storm's coming, showing off is smarter than hiding. After sword class, I headed to the horse grounds. The air smelled like hay and horse, which sounds gross, but honestly, I've grown to love it. Old Master Glenn, the horse instructor, was standing next to the most beautiful horse I'd ever seen. Pure black, like someone poured liquid midnight into a horse mold. This thing glowed in the sunset like a fantasy movie poster. This is Night Shadow, Glenn announced proudly. A purebred Ulan horse, straight from the capital. Let me explain why my jaw dropped. Ulan horses come from one of the 5 dominant tribes on the Dos grasslands. A regular warhorse does maybe 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. An Ulan horse? 50. That's horse-shaped lightning. A purebred like this would cost at least 2,000 gold coins on the open market. That's, by a small village, money. I reached out my hand slowly, and Night Shadow, this beautiful midnight rocket, gently nuzzled my palm. I swear my heart melted into a puddle right there on the stable floor. I saddled him up myself, climbed on, and we just clicked. Every turn, every acceleration, every speed change. It was like we shared one brain. Glenn stood on the sideline looking emotional, saying our coordination was seamless. I think the old man was holding back tears. I didn't want to leave the stables. They practically had to drag me away when it got dark. Dinner time. Hundreds of bronze oil lamps lit up the castle corridors bright as day. The dinner bell echoed off the stone walls, and I joined my family at the main table. By family, I mean Dad, me, and my 2 little brothers. That's it. For dudes at a table built for 20. Kahir, my middle brother, is 10 years old and basically a tiny philosopher. Sits quietly, says nothing, stares at things with eyes that say, I am contemplating the meaning of existence. Creepy kid? Maybe. But I respect it. Albert, the baby of the family, is 5. This child is a chaos gremlin. Curious about everything. Poking the food, touching the candles, probably trying to eat the tablecloth when nobody's looking. My mom. She died giving birth to Albert. Complications during delivery. Massive bleeding. Gone. And here's the thing that shocks the entire noble world. Dad never remarried. Not once in 5 years. No mistresses, no concubines, nothing. Even his personal maids are old grandmothers. In a world where the lowest-ranking baron keeps a harem, my dad chose to stay alone. Every other noble gossips about it like it's the scandal of the century, but honestly, it makes me respect him more than any military victory ever could. My older sister Jelena married the eldest son of Marquis Diaz last year and moved away. So now it's just us 4 boys, sitting at this massive, empty table, the sound of silverware echoing in the silence. Cozy? Not exactly. But it's home. Quick clarification about our living situation. The Solbright family isn't just 4 lonely dudes in a giant castle. We've got relatives everywhere. Cousins, uncles, second cousins twice removed, the whole circus. But only Dad's immediate family gets to live in Silver Eagle Fortress itself. Everyone else lives either on their own lands or in Silver Radiant City, right next door. Think of it like, we live in the penthouse, and the extended family lives in the apartment building next door. When I walked into dinner, Kahir and Albert both looked up at me with those big adoring eyes. Little brothers, man. I'm basically their superhero. Kahir gave me his quiet, respectful nod. This kid is 10 and acts like a tiny monk. Albert just vibrated with excitement because everything in his 5-year-old world is thrilling, including bread. Dad launched into one of his family legacy speeches over dinner. You know the type. Our ancestors bled for this. Courage in our veins. Blah blah responsibility. But then his eyes locked onto me like a targeting system. Lin En, you are the eldest son. Your shoulders will carry the heaviest burden. Cool. Love that. Nothing makes dinner taste better than the crushing weight of generational expectations. I nodded solemnly while internally thinking, buddy, I'm a military strategist from another planet reborn as your son. I think I can handle some medieval management. After dinner, I walked the castle corridors alone, moonlight painting silver patches on the stone floor. Dad's words echoed in my head. Time was running out. I could feel it. I needed to level up in everything. Swords, horses, politics, territory management. My to-do list looked like a university course catalog. Next afternoon, I showed up at Dad's study for air training, day 1. He was already waiting with a stack of books and scrolls so thick they could stop an arrow. This man prepared. He probably had lesson plans and a grading rubric. Lin En, tell me about our family history. Oh, you want the presentation? Let me give you the presentation. I cleared my throat and went full History Channel mode. The Solbright family started during the founding of the previous kingdom, originally famous for being really good at fighting people. I paused for diplomatic effect. Over the centuries, our ancestors expanded territory, produced legendary knights and brilliant leaders. And you, Father, earned the title Silver Eagle War God and brought the family to its greatest heights ever. What I didn't say out loud, but absolutely know. Our family is over 700 years old. That's older than the clan kingdom itself. We started as a tiny baron family and clawed our way up to one of the 5 great duke houses. Solbright literally means radiance in ancient Lafa language, and our crest is a silver eagle with spread wings. So people call us the Silver Radiance family. Every Duke Solbright gets called the Silver Radiance Duke. Our family motto? Silver wings never fall, light burns eternal, which sounds awesome on a banner, but is basically saying, we refuse to lose. in fancy words. We've been guarding the southern border for over 300 years. In the south, our family is the government. The king is far away. We are right here. And the thing backing all this swagger? Our army. Let me break down the numbers because they're insane. 50,000 professional soldiers. Full-time, don't farm just fight, trained killing machines. Including a 5,000-strong cavalry unit called the Silver Eagle Knights. And here's the kicker. The South doesn't even produce warhorses. Maintaining 5,000 cavalry in a region with no horses is like running a seafood restaurant in the desert. The sheer cost is mind-boggling. One regular soldier needs the labor of 10 farmers just to keep fed, equipped, and paid. Cavalry costs even more. So our family is basically burning money like firewood just to maintain this army. And we can, because we're that rich. Oh, and that's just our personal army. As one of the 5 great dukes and guardian of the South, we also have a bunch of smaller nobles sworn to us. Barons, viscounts, counts, all under our banner. When war breaks out, we call the banners, they bring their armies, and suddenly we've got a force that could make kingdoms nervous. That's how war works on this continent. You call your vassals, they call their vassals, and everybody shows up with whatever they've got. It's like a medieval phone tree of violence. Dad listened to my history report with a hint of a smile, which for him is basically cartwheels of joy, and added his own lesson. Glory is paid for in blood. Never forget the sacrifice behind the success. Yes, Father, I understand, and I genuinely did. Behind every shiny family motto is a graveyard full of ancestors who died making it true. Then Dad got down to the real business. He pulled out an ancient yellowed book titled The Way of Territory Governance, a thrilling title that screams bestseller, and started teaching me how to actually run things. Agriculture, craftsmanship, tax policies, diplomatic relations with neighboring territories. The man went through it all like a medieval MBA program. How to grow enough food, how to develop industry, how to set taxes that don't make your people revolt, how to negotiate with your neighbors without starting a war. And honestly, coming from a modern world, I could see both the brilliance and the gaps. Dad's knowledge was impressive for this era, but my brain was already running calculations about crop rotation, infrastructure improvements, and trade optimization that would blow his mind. But I kept my mouth shut for now. Day 1 is for listening. Actually, Dad, let me introduce you to basic economics. Conversation can wait until at least day 3. The afternoon study sessions with Dad became my new favorite torture. We'd argue about territory management until the sunset turned the study orange, and honestly, I was cooking. I started dropping modern management ideas, adapted for medieval reality, obviously, and Dad's eyebrows kept climbing higher up his forehead. Lin En, your thinking surpasses many seasoned nobles, he said, which in Dad speak is basically throwing a parade in my honor. He gave me a handwritten journal from generations of past Soulbright lords. Their personal notes, strategies, mistakes, everything. Centuries of family wisdom in one book. I held it like it was made of diamonds and babies. The next few weeks were basically medieval air boot camp. My daily schedule looked like this. Wake up, sword training, horse training, territory management class, military strategy class, diplomacy class, intelligence gathering, collapse into bed, repeat. I was studying things that noble families guard like nuclear launch codes, battle formations, army logistics, political manipulation. In this world, there are no publicly available strategy books like Sun Tzu's Art of War. If nobody teaches you, you don't even know how to line up soldiers properly. That's why every great general comes from nobility. They literally have a monopoly on military knowledge. But me? I have 700 years of Soulbright family secrets plus an entire modern military education rattling around in my skull. I'm basically cheating at civilization. I also started building my own intelligence network. Quietly. Nothing crazy, just keeping my ears open, collecting information about kingdom politics, figuring out who's allied with whom, which prince is bribing which lord. Standard paranoid transmigrator behavior. Then, about 2 weeks in, Dad dropped the nuclear bomb. Lin En, I'm going to the capital in a few days. While I'm gone, you will manage all family affairs. I'm sorry, what? My brain did 3 backflips. On one hand, awesome. Real power. Real experience. On the other hand, I'm 13. I haven't even had my 14th birthday yet. And this man wants me to run a duchy with 50,000 soldiers and God knows how many towns and villages. Don't worry, father. I'll take care of everything. My voice was calm. My internal organs were doing parkour. Dad spent the next few days downloading his entire brain into mine. Agriculture schedules, tax collection details, diplomatic relationships with neighbors, emergency protocols for every disaster imaginable. It was like drinking from a fire hose of medieval bureaucracy. Stay calm. Think smart. Be brave. And listen to the old advisors. They know things, Dad summarized. Got it. Don't panic. Don't be stupid. Don't be arrogant. 3 rules I can probably manage. Probably. I spent every remaining day cramming. Reviewed every detail Dad mentioned. Went around personally meeting the senior advisors, asking them questions, learning their perspectives. I was basically doing a speed run of How to Be a Duke for Dummies. The day before my 14th birthday, Dad rode out with an elite guard escort toward the capital. I stood on the castle wall, watching his banner disappear over the horizon. And just like that, I was in charge. First morning as acting Lord Soulbright. I woke up before dawn. Couldn't sleep anyway, too much adrenaline. I stood on the castle balcony, watching the territory wake up. Wheat fields swaying in the breeze, village chimneys puffing smoke, everything peaceful and pretty. For about 5 more minutes, probably. The managers are waiting in the council hall, young master, Wilson reminded me. I put on the deep blue formal coat with our family crest embroidered on it. If I'm going to play Duke, I'm going to look like a Duke. Walking into that council hall was an experience. 15-something managers and knights lined up on both sides. They all stood and bowed when I entered. Very respectful, very proper, but I could read their eyes like subtitles. Half of them, this is a child. We're doomed. Other half, let's see what the kid's got. One guy in the back, probably thinking about lunch. Please sit, I said, keeping my voice as deep and steady as possible. My father briefed me on current affairs, but I want to hear your assessments of the territory's situation. That got some surprised looks. They expected a kid who'd just rubber stamp whatever Dad left behind. Instead, I'm asking for opinions. Revolutionary concept, apparently. The agriculture manager went first. Young master, there are signs of locusts in the eastern wheat fields. If we don't act fast, I listened to every report carefully, nodding, asking follow-up questions, being a good little leader. Then the tax collector mentioned that several eastern towns were behind on payments, and my spider sense exploded. These towns always pay on time. Why are they late this year? I asked. The tax guy started sweating. Well, probably bad harvest. Probably, my fingers tapped the table slowly. Something stinks here, and it's not the tax collector's excuses. Eastern towns, near the border, where the bandits are active, suddenly can't pay taxes? That's not a coincidence, that's a CLUE. Arrange it. Tomorrow I'm personally inspecting the eastern territories. The room went dead quiet. You could hear a mouse cough. After the meeting, Sir Reynard, Dad's most trusted military commander, a grizzled 50-year-old knight who's seen more battles than I've had hot meals, stayed behind looking worried. Young master, are you sure about going east? It's near the border. There are bandit reports. I smiled. That's exactly why I need to go. My father always says a lord who doesn't understand his people's suffering can't make good decisions. Reynard stared at me for a long moment. I could see something shift behind his old soldier eyes. He went from babysitting duty to, okay, maybe this kid's actually got something. He nodded and promised to arrange maximum security. Next morning, over 100 knights and attendants assembled at the gates. They brought a fancy carriage for me. I walked right past it and climbed onto Knight Shadow. A carriage? For an inspection tour? Please. If my people are suffering, I'm not going to roll up in a luxury box on wheels like some pampered prince. I'm riding in on horseback like a proper lord. Also, Knight Shadow would have been personally offended if I chose a carriage over him. That horse has more pride than most nobles I've met. A day of riding later, we arrived at Birch Tree Village in the Eastern Territory, and wow, just wow. The place looked like depression had a physical address. Fields nearly empty. Rooftops caving in. The few farmers working looked like scarecrows that forgot to eat. When they saw our family banner, everyone dropped to their knees so fast I heard knees cracking. I helped an old man up. Sir, what happened? Why can't you pay taxes? The old guy was shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. My lord, we didn't mean to fall behind. It's just. His eyes were darting around like he was afraid the trees were listening. Before he could finish, a blood-covered young man came stumbling down the road screaming like the world was ending. "My lord, help!" The Black Mountain Bandits attacked Mill Village. They kidnapped over a dozen people. My blood went cold, then immediately went hot. The Black Mountain Bandits are a gang that hides in the eastern mountains. They normally only raid in winter when they're starving. It's the middle of summer. Why would they attack now? Someone's pulling their strings. "How many bandits?" I asked. 200 or 300. Captain Wagner, my escort leader, immediately went into responsible adult mode. "Young master, we should go back to the castle and get more soldiers. In no time." I cut him off. "We're going to Mill Village." Now, Wagner shut up real quick. Honestly, he was probably relieved. The man was itching for a fight. He just didn't want to be the one suggesting we bring a 13-year-old to a battle. But let's do the math here. We have over 100 elite knights, the best-trained soldiers in the Soul Bright Army, wearing top-tier armor, riding superior warhorses. They have 300 bandits in leather jackets with stolen kitchen knives. This isn't even a fair fight. This is a tutorial level. We charged toward Mill Village. Along the way, we ran into terrified villagers fleeing in every direction, confirming the bandits were burning and kidnapping their way through. Every crying face I saw made my decision feel more right. When we arrived at Mill Village, I wanted to scream. Houses on fire. Wounded people on the ground. Women and children crying everywhere. This wasn't a raid. This was terrorism with medieval tools. Which way did they go? East. The mountain road. A wounded villager gasped. "All units. Full pursuit." My knights looked at me like, "Did this kid just give a combat order?" Yes. Yes, I did. "Move." We followed the bandit trail and caught up fast because, surprise, surprise, dragging a bunch of tied-up captive villagers through the countryside isn't exactly Formula 1 speed. Within minutes I could see them, a mob of guys in black leather armor, pushing bound civilians toward the tree line. My military brain kicked in hard. Time for Tactics 101. I leaned over to Wagner and whispered, "Captain, take half the men and charge them head-on. Make lots of noise. Get their attention. I'll take the rest around the side and hit them where they're not looking." Wagner nodded. This man has been a soldier for 30 years. He knew a good flanking maneuver when he heard one. Meanwhile, on the bandit side, things were going beautifully terrible for them. One of their lookouts came sprinting to their boss, a guy named Hans, screaming, "Boss! Solbright cavalry. They're coming." You could practically hear 300 buttholes clench simultaneously. Hans had a moment of pure existential crisis. The forest was still over a kilometer away. 2 legs cannot outrun 4 legs. That's not strategy, that's biology. He had 2 choices: run and get mowed down from behind, or stand and fight. Not great options. Like choosing between a punch in the face and a kick in the face. Hans chose to fight. He gave this whole motivational speech. "Brothers, they're outnumbered. Just survive the first charge, and we can escape into the forest," which honestly wasn't bad advice. For bandits facing cavalry in open ground, it was basically the only advice. His men, to their credit, actually picked up their weapons instead of just fainting. Brave? Sure. Smart? Absolutely not. Wagner hit them head-on like a freight train. Horses screaming, swords flashing, dust clouds everywhere. The bandits were trying to hold formation, and by formation, I mean terrified clump, against professional cavalry. It went about as well as you'd expect. I watched from the side with my squad, waiting, patient, calm. My old military instructors always said, the flanking force doesn't move when it wants to. It moves when the enemy needs it to. And there it was, a gap. The bandit line shifted, lost cohesion for just a second. Charge. We exploded from the side like we'd been launched from a cannon. The bandits' faces when they saw another wave of knights appearing from nowhere? Chef's kiss. Pure, unfiltered despair. Their formation didn't just break, it evaporated. Hans tried to rally his men, swinging a big sword around, doing his best action hero impression. But you can't fight a two-front battle when your army is a bunch of part-time muggers wearing glorified Halloween costumes. I personally captured Hans, grabbed him myself. He looked at me with this mixture of rage and disbelief, probably thinking, I got beaten by a kid? Yeah, buddy. A kid with 40 years of military knowledge and zero patience for people who kidnap farmers. Welcome to prison. After the fighting stopped, I immediately switched from commander mode to mayor mode. Organized medical treatment for the wounded. calmed down the terrified villagers. The rescued captives were crying, thanking us, calling us saviors. I told them, from today on, no bandit will ever touch your villages again. Then I announced, taxes canceled for the year. Free grain relief coming. The villagers looked at me like I descended from heaven on a golden cloud. I sent a few knights to escort the freed villagers home, then climbed a small hill to survey the aftermath. 2 of my knights were dead. Their bodies lay under silver eagle banners, side by side. Wounded men were getting patched up. Others were cleaning the battlefield despite their own injuries. 2 men dead, under MY command. On MY first day as acting lord. I kept my face stone cold. A leader doesn't cry on the battlefield. Casualty report, I said. My voice didn't shake. I made sure it didn't shake. Wagner knelt before me, dried blood still on his armor. Young master, 210 bandits killed. 135 captured, including the leader. 0 escaped. Total annihilation. Perfect tactical victory. But those 2 covered bodies wouldn't leave my mind. Winning doesn't feel as good as the books say it does. Our casualties? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Wagner's voice dropped low. 2 dead, 1 critical, 3 light wounds. Ross and Martin. They died protecting the flank. I closed my eyes. Ross, the big guy who was always grinning like a golden retriever in human form. Martin, best archer in the squad, never shut up about it either. Gone. Just like that. Here's the thing that made it worse. We were on an inspection tour, not a combat mission. My knights were wearing light armor instead of full plate. If they'd had their heavy gear on, these garbage tier bandits couldn't have scratched them. But nobody packs full battle armor for a tax audit. Nobody expects bandits in summer. I took a breath. Send the bodies home to their families. Get the critically wounded back to the castle. Tell Wilson to arrange the best doctors. Wagner started to leave, but I wasn't done. One more thing. 30 gold coins to each family of the fallen. 10 for the critically wounded. 4 for the lightly wounded. 2 for every man who fought today. Wagner's head snapped up so fast, I thought his neck would break. His eyebrows practically launched off his face. Let me explain why he looked like I'd just announced I was secretly a dragon. In this kingdom, if a knight dies in battle, their family might get 10 gold coins if the lord is feeling generous. That's considered exceptional kindness. Most lords give less. For regular soldiers, many lords give nothing. Because dying for your lord is your duty, and apparently duty pays in honor, not food. 30 gold coins is 5 years of a knight's salary. 1 gold coin equals 100 silver, 1 silver equals 100 copper. 10 copper coins buys a pound of flour. 1 gold coin can feed a family of 4 for an entire year if they're careful. 30? That's 30 years of food security. A lifetime of not worrying about hunger. Young master, isn't that too much? Wagner stammered. Too generous? I let out a bitter laugh. Wagner, loyalty shouldn't be cheap. These men died for our family. Their families deserve to never go hungry again. I learned something in my past life that this world's nobles haven't figured out yet. Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, or in medieval terms, your army is your power, and armies fight harder for lords who actually care about them. When Wagner announced the payout to the troops, the battlefield went silent for 1 perfect second. Then a young knight, face covered in blood and dirt, dropped to 1 knee, stabbed his sword into the ground, and shouted with a voice cracking from emotion, "For young Master Lin En, for the glory of Solbright, for Lin En." Every knight on that field roared it back. Dozens of armored men, slamming fists against breastplates, the metallic thunder echoing across the hills. The sunsets stretched their shadows out behind them like an army 10 times their size. Those 30 gold coins just bought me something worth more than any amount of money. Genuine, unshakable loyalty. And these knights will go home and talk. They'll tell their families, their friends, their drinking buddies. The young master paid 30 gold for the fallen. Word spreads. Reputation builds. Within a week, every soldier in the territory will know the name Lin En, and they'll know it means this lord values your life. Modern leadership psychology applied to medieval warfare. You're welcome, Solbright family. But the warm, fuzzy moment was over. Time for the part I'd been waiting for. Bring me the bandit leader. 2 knights dragged Hans over like a sack of angry potatoes. They'd stripped his armor off, revealing a torso that looked like a roadmap of bad decisions, scars everywhere. Half his right ear was missing, A centipede-shaped scar crawled across his left cheek. This man's body was basically a memoir titled, Poor Life Choices. They shoved him to his knees in front of me. His eyes were a cocktail of cunning and terror, like a rat that knows it's cornered but is still looking for the cheese. Hans, right? I lifted his chin with my sword sheath. Tell me, why attack in summer? Why specifically kidnap young, strong men? My voice was quiet. Calm. The kind of calm that makes people more nervous than shouting. Hans licked his cracked lips. My lord, we were just hungry. I backhanded him across the face. Smack. Blood dribbled from his mouth. His eyes went wide. Liar. I leaned in close, my shadow covering him completely. You stole barely enough food to feed 20 people, but you kidnapped 37 able-bodied workers. You're not hungry. You're shopping for labor. Now talk. I dropped my voice to a whisper. Last chance. Tell the truth, or I hand you over to those knights over there. The ones whose friends you just killed. Hans glanced at the knights behind me. Several of them were staring at him with the kind of hatred that doesn't need words. Those were Ross and Martin's buddies. Hans looked like a man calculating the exact speed of his approaching death. My lord, if I talk, will you let me live? That depends on whether your information is worth a life. Hans gulped, then whispered something that made my brain short-circuit. We found an iron mine in the northern foothills of Black Mountain. An iron mine. Every nerve in my body fired at once. Iron is the most critical strategic resource in the South, and we don't have any. The Solbright family spends tens of thousands of gold coins every year importing iron or from other territories. That's nearly 20% of our entire budget. It's our biggest financial weakness, and every enemy knows it. And there's just been one sitting in our backyard this whole time. Keep talking. My voice was perfectly calm. My hand was white-knuckle gripping my sword so hard it might snap. The Grand Chief said we needed workers to mine it. So we were told to grab strong men. Grand Chief? There's a bigger boss? Hans was just middle management? Please spare me. It was all the Grand Chief's idea. I pulled back and started thinking at light speed. Iron mine means I need soldiers to secure it and miners to work it. I turned to Wagner. What's the nearest garrison? 4th Infantry Regiment, stationed in Mapletown. About 15 kilometers. Send 2 of our fastest riders. Tell them to move out immediately, light equipment. Also, send the prisoners back to Silver Eagle Fortress. And get me some mining officials from the castle. Wagner saluted and ran off. I turned back to Hans, letting my sword tip hover Jewist above his shoulder. Wanna live? He nodded so hard his remaining ear and a half wobbled. Then you're going to tell me everything. The exact mine location, your total numbers, your base layout, and every single detail about this Grand Chief of yours. Name, face, habits, favorite breakfast, all of it. I leaned in one final inch. And if I catch you lying even once, your head becomes a decorative piece on my castle wall. Hans started talking very fast. Hans was singing like a canary with a sword at its throat. The iron mine is deep in the northern foothills of Black Mountain, hidden behind dense forest. We found it by accident. His voice was shaking so hard it had its own vibrato. The Grand Chief's name is Roar. Mean guy. We have about 900 men total. 300 were with me. 500 are still at the base. 900. Okay, that's not a cute little bandit club. That's a small army. Roar planned to use the kidnapped villagers as slave labor to mine the iron, then secretly sell it to northern nobles for gold and weapons to grow our forces. I sat there processing this. On one hand, these bandits are genuinely terrible people running a slavery-powered mining operation. On the other hand, there is a fat iron deposit sitting in MY family's territory, and we didn't even know about it. Do you understand what iron means to us? The Solbright family bleeds money, tens of thousands of gold coins every year, importing iron from other territories. That's almost 20% of our entire budget going straight into some other lord's pocket. Finding our own iron mine would be like discovering an ATM that prints money forever. This is simultaneously the best and worst news I've ever received. Wagner, tell everyone to rest in place. We wait for reinforcements. While the knights took a breather, I gathered Wagner and a few veteran knights around for a strategy meeting. Hans sat nearby under guard, spilling every detail we needed. The man's survival instinct was impressive. He was drawing maps in the dirt with his finger like a terrified GPS. The mine could be huge, I said. We move fast before word leaks. But 500 bandits is no joke. We can't get sloppy. One sharp-eyed old knight spoke up. What if we send a small scout team to the mine under cover of darkness, while the main force surrounds their base for a surprise attack? I like this guy. Good plan. Speed and secrecy are everything. Wagner, you coordinate the entire operation. As the sky dimmed, the 4th Infantry Regiment finally showed up. Their commander, Garcia, rode in at the front looking like a recruitment poster. Mid-30s, chiseled jaw, silver armor gleaming, long sword on his hip, sitting on a massive warhorse like he was born in the saddle. This man's entire aesthetic screamed, "I am a professional who will absolutely wreck your day." Young Master Lin En, 4th Infantry Regiment, fully assembled and awaiting orders. His voice could have echoed off mountains. I liked him immediately. Perfect timing, Commander Garcia. I need your regiment to help us wipe out a bandit camp and secure an iron mine they discovered. Garcia's eyebrow twitched. You could see his brain processing. Iron mine, like a slot machine hitting jackpot. But he recovered instantly. Understood. The 4th will give everything we have. We huddled together and built the full battle plan. Scout team goes first under Wagner to locate the mine and check the enemy's defenses. Main force follows, with Hans leading us to the bandit base. Hit them at night. Hit them hard. Leave nobody running. I personally picked the scouts, our sneakiest, most experienced knights. Wagner took them ahead into the darkness. Garcia's infantry followed behind, ready to attack on signal. Meanwhile, back at the bandit hideout, Grand Chief Roar was pacing around like a nervous cat. Now I didn't see this part personally, but based on what we pieced together later, here's roughly what was happening in the enemy camp while we were creeping through the forest. Roar, big guy, nasty scar over his left eye, the kind of face that makes children cry, was getting antsy. It's dark already. Why isn't Hans back? One of his lieutenants, a greasy little weasel, snickered. Boss, you know Hans. Probably found some village women and forgot what time it is. The other mini-bosses all nodded and chuckled. Yeah, first time down the mountain in months. Can't blame a guy for taking his time. And Roar bought it. He actually bought it. His shoulders relaxed. Fine, whatever. Send him to me the moment he's back. Beautiful. Beautiful. The Grand Chief of 900 bandits just assumed his missing 300-man raiding party was late because they were partying too hard. Not because, they'd been completely annihilated and their leader was currently leading the enemy straight to his front door. This is why bandits stay bandits, folks. Terrible risk assessment. See, Roar's reasoning actually made sense from his perspective. His boys rarely went downhill. When they did, they were terrified of bumping into soul-bright patrols, so they'd rush back fast. But this time, with a special mission and the excitement of finally going down the mountain, sure, maybe Hans let the boys have some fun. Logical. Except Hans was currently tied to a horse about 2 kilometers away, whispering directions to MY Army with the enthusiasm of a man who very much wanted to keep his head attached. The torches in the bandit camp flickered in the night breeze, casting dancing shadows everywhere. Very atmospheric. Very cozy. We have no idea we're about to have the worst night of our lives. Our scouts, guided by Hans's intel, silently took out every lookout post along the route. The sentries never saw it coming. 4th Regiment scouts moved through the darkness like ghosts. One moment there's a bored bandit picking his nose at a checkpoint. Next moment there's an unconscious bandit and a very satisfied soldier. And there I was, riding quietly at the head of several hundred soldiers, creeping through the Black Mountain forest toward a camp full of 500 bandits who thought their biggest problem tonight was Hans hogging all the village wine. Surprise, boys. The problem is much bigger than that. I gotta give credit to these bandits for one thing. Their hideout was genuinely impossible to find. Black Mountain is thick forest, steep cliffs, and 0 landmarks. You could wander around up there for weeks and end up right back where you started. No wonder our family's previous raids never found them. Without Hans literally walking us through every twist and turn, we'd still be bumping into trees. We reached a ridge overlooking their camp. There it was, a valley base surrounded by mountains, ringed by crappy wooden fences, a few bonfires flickering, and the laziest patrol guards I've ever seen in 2 lifetimes. These guys were strolling around like they were on a vacation, not guarding a secret criminal empire. They haven't noticed us, Garcia whispered with the cold smile of a man who already knew how this was going to end. Wagner's scout team reported back from the mine. Minimal guards at the entrance. Basically asleep. Green light. Perfect. Everything was falling into place like the universe wanted me to win tonight. It's time. Execute the plan. Garcia's 4th Regiment spread out silently. Hundreds of professional soldiers flowing through the darkness like water. Archers took the high ground. Infantry formed a net around the valley. Every exit, covered. Every escape route, blocked. Well, mostly blocked. It's nighttime in dense forest, so a perfect seal was impossible, but close enough. I drew my sword. Moonlight caught the blade. Very cinematic. Attack. The archers went first. Hundreds of arrows screamed through the night sky and crashed into the camp like angry rain. Bandits started screaming before they even knew what was happening. Guys were running out of tents half-dressed, tripping over each other, bumping into walls. It was pure beautiful chaos. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. They shrieked, running in circles like headless chickens. Roar, the Grand Chief himself, burst out of his tent looking like someone had slapped him awake with a fish. His face went from confused to furious to pale in about 3 seconds flat. Everyone rally. Fight back, he screamed. Yeah, good luck organizing 500 panic bandits who were literally sleeping 30 seconds ago. That's like trying to herd cats during an earthquake, while the cats are on fire. Garcia's infantry hit the camp like a tidal wave. Professional soldiers versus half-awake criminals in their underwear. It wasn't even a fight, it was a demonstration. I led my remaining knights straight toward Roar. If you want to end a war fast, you cut off the head. Roar saw me coming and grabbed a massive battle axe. This thing was practically bigger than me, and charged like an angry bull. Who are you? How dare you attack my camp, Soulbright family? Lin En. I gave him the coldest introduction of my entire life. Both lives combined, and our weapons collided. Sparks flew everywhere. Very dramatic. 10 out of 10. This guy was strong. Each swing of his axe felt like getting hit by a falling tree. But strength without technique is just angry exercise. My swordsmanship was leagues above his wild swinging. Within a few exchanges, I could read his pattern like a children's book. How? How did you find this place? He gasped between swings. Your boy Hans sends his regards. Roar's face went through 5 stages of grief in 2 seconds. That traitor. I'll kill him. You won't be killing anyone. I caught an opening and thrust at his chest. He dodged, barely, but my blade sliced deep into his shoulder. Blood sprayed. He stumbled backward, and I pressed forward, sword tip stopping 1 inch from his throat. He squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for death. It didn't come. He peeked one eye open. My sword was just sitting there, hovering at his neck like a very patient threat. Surrender, Roar. Your men are finished. Fighting more just means more people die for nothing. He looked around. His camp was a disaster zone. Dead bandits everywhere. The survivors were throwing down weapons and putting hands up faster than I could count. His grand bandit empire was collapsing in real time, like a sandcastle versus the ocean. His axe hit the ground with a pathetic clang. I surrender, music to my ears. The whole battle was over embarrassingly fast. Most bandits were killed or captured. A handful escaped into the forest darkness. Inevitable when you're fighting at night in heavy woods. But the organization was done. Finished. Deleted. Our casualties? A few dozen wounded, maybe 10 dead. Against 500 bandits. When you ambush sleeping amateurs with elite soldiers, those are the numbers you get. Morning light hit the camp, and I got my first look at the loot. My jaw hit the floor. 5,000 gold coins gleaming in wooden chests. 20,000 silver coins packed in burlap sacks. 50,000 copper coins piled up in a literal mountain. Years and years of stolen wealth, all sitting in one place like a bandit savings account. Wagner kicked a pile of rusty swords at his feet. Young master, these weapons are garbage. They were garbage. Chipped blades, loose handles, rust spots everywhere. Compared to our forges, this stuff was scrap metal. I picked up a broken sword and flicked it. It went thunk instead of ring. Melt them all down. Ship everything back to the castle. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The camp went dead silent. Every soldier stopped moving. You could hear heartbeats. As for the money, I paused, letting the suspense build because I am a dramatic person. Distribute all of it among the soldiers who fought tonight. 3, 2, 1. The camp exploded, cheering so loud it probably woke up every animal on the mountain. Knights were screaming. Infantry were hugging each other. Old veterans were pumping their fists like teenagers. Someone was actually crying from happiness. Long live young Master Lin En. Glory to Solbright forever. Commander Garcia dropped to one knee, slammed his iron fist against his breastplate so hard it echoed off the valley walls. After such generosity, the 4th Infantry Regiment pledges its life to you. Behind him, several thousand soldiers saluted in perfect unison. Every pair of eyes was burning with a loyalty you can't buy with money alone. You can only earn it by giving the money away. I raised my hand for quiet. This treasure was won with your blood and your courage. The Solbright family never shortchanges the warriors who fight for it. I looked at the wounded soldiers wrapped in bandages. Double compensation for the fallen. Their families will be under Solbright protection forever. The cheering somehow got louder. Men were embracing, slapping each other's backs, some literally weeping with joy. In a world where most lords pocket every coin and treat soldiers like disposable tools, I'd just given away an entire fortune. Wagner sidled up next to me and whispered, "Young master, that money could have bought a whole estate." I watched the celebrating soldiers, these men who would now march through fire if I asked them to, and smiled. Know why the Silver Eagle family has lasted 700 years, Wagner? I pointed at those cheering, crying, laughing faces. Because their loyalty is worth more than gold. 5,000 gold coins, gone. One army of die-hard fanatics who would literally take a sword for me? Priceless. This is called investment, people. Look it up. Dawn broke over the battlefield like the universe hitting the "everything's gonna be fine" filter. Golden light poured through the trees onto a valley full of captured bandits, celebrating soldiers, and me, standing on a hill like a main character, because I am the main character. Then Sir Reynard showed up with reinforcements and the mining officials I'd requested. Turns out the old knight had been panicking all night about my safety and rushed here with cavalry at top speed. He arrived ready to rescue me from certain doom and instead found me casually supervising a completed victory. His face was priceless, like a fireman who sprints into a building and finds the fire already put out and the residents having tea. You wiped out the Black Mountain bandits and captured an iron mine? In one night? Team effort, I said modestly, while internally doing a victory dance so aggressive it would have broken my spine. Reynard slapped my shoulder hard enough to rearrange my skeleton. Magnificent work. This removes a threat and gives the family a massive resource boost. I pulled him close and dropped my voice. The iron mine stays secret. If other noble families find out about this, we'll have vultures circling within a week. Reynard's face went from happy to deadly serious instantly. I'll personally assign trusted men to manage the mine. Not a word will leak. Good. Because in this world, an unguarded iron mine is basically a neon sign saying, "Please invade me." Next question. What to do with several hundred captured bandits? Reynard suggested the classic options, execution or slavery. But then his eyes lit up with a more practical idea. We need miners anyway. Why not put them to work in the iron mine? Call it rehabilitation through labor. I pretended to think about it for exactly 2 seconds. Agreed. They can dig their way to redemption, poetic justice. You kidnapped villagers to mine iron? Congratulations, you're the miners now. Enjoy the career change. Then a soldier came running. Young master, we found a cellar in the camp. There are prisoners, civilians. My stomach dropped. I rushed over immediately. The cellar was dark, damp, and smelled like despair had a physical form. Inside were dozens of people, men and women, in rags, starving, hollow-eyed. Some looked like they'd given up on ever seeing sunlight again. My blood went from warm to boiling in about half a second. I stepped forward and spoke as gently as I could. You're safe now. We're the Solbright army. The bandits are gone. You're free. Silence. Then one person started crying. Then another. Then the entire cellar erupted into weeping and cheering simultaneously, which is a sound I never want to hear again because it absolutely destroyed me emotionally. They dropped to their knees thanking me like I was some kind of god. I pulled them back up immediately. This is what we're supposed to do. Rest now. We'll get you home. I walked out of that cellar and my face went dark. These bandits have been operating for years. Years of kidnapping, terrorizing villages, ruining lives. The fact that it took this long to find them made me angry at the situation and motivated to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. Reynard sighed. They've plagued the area for too long. At least it's finally over. I ordered a full census of the rescued civilians. Find out who they are, where they're from, get them home. Anyone with no home left gets settled in villages near the castle. Nobody gets left behind. I left Garcia and the 4th Regiment behind to start building a proper camp near the mine. Iron doesn't mine itself, and we needed infrastructure yesterday. Then Reynard, Wagner, and I took the cavalry back to Silver Eagle Fortress. The first thing I did when I got home, before reports, before meetings, before anything, was take a bath. Listen, it was the middle of summer. I had spent an entire night fighting bandits in a mountain forest, sweating in armor, rolling in dirt, getting splashed with other people's blood. I smelled like a gym locker that had been marinated in a swamp. When I peeled off that armor, I'm pretty sure the air flinched. Hot water has never felt so good. I practically melted into that tub. If someone had told me in that moment that the kingdom was on fire, I would have said, give me 5 more minutes. Clean clothes. Fresh skin. I felt like a completely new human being. I walked into the dining room and found paradise. The table was absolutely loaded. Sizzling roast beef, juicy roast chicken, a beautiful vegetable salad, fresh fruit, and a bottle of aged wine that was literally glowing under the lamplight. After 2 days of nothing but field rations and adrenaline, this spread looked like a message from heaven. And there were my 2 little brothers, already seated, practically vibrating with excitement. Kahir pounced the second I sat down. Big brother, is it true? You led an army last night and destroyed the Black Mountain bandits and captured an iron mine? That's incredible. You're amazing. This kid's eyes were shining so bright you could have used them as lanterns. 10 years old and already my biggest fan. Little Albert, age 5, didn't really understand what was happening, but his eyes were spinning around like, something exciting is going on and I want in. Yes, it's true, I said, trying to sound humble while cutting into the most glorious steak I'd ever seen. But it was really the soldiers who did the hard work. Kahir was bouncing in his chair. Albert started clapping because Kahir was excited. So he was excited, even though he definitely thought iron mine was maybe a type of food. They made me tell the whole story over dinner. Kahir was hanging on every word like it was the greatest adventure tale ever written. Every time I described a battle moment, his eyes got wider. When I mentioned the flanking maneuver, he gasped. When I described facing roar, he forgot to breathe. Albert contributed helpful commentary like, wow, and WHOA, and one very enthusiastic, again, when I described the cavalry charge. He understood maybe 15% of what I was saying, but his enthusiasm was at a solid 200%. Then Kahir grabbed my arm, eyes blazing with determination. Big brother, I want to be a hero like you someday. I want to fight for our family's glory. This tiny 10-year-old was clenching his fists like he was about to challenge the entire continent to a duel. I couldn't help it. I reached over and ruffled his hair. Keep training your swordsmanship, stay brave and honest, and you'll be an amazing knight someday. He beamed like I'd just knighted him on the spot. Albert tried to copy Kahir's serious fist-clenching pose, but mostly just looked like an adorable potato trying to be intimidating. These ridiculous, precious little brothers of mine. If the storm Dad warned about ever reaches Silver Eagle Fortress, it's going through me before it touches a hair on their heads. But first, more steak. Heroes need fuel. I told little Albert to be strong and brave, because that's the foundation of greatness. He nodded so hard his whole body wobbled. This child understands maybe 30% of my words, but agrees with 100% of his heart. Quick note about family politics. I'm not worried about my brothers competing with me for the inheritance. On this continent, the eldest legitimate son inherits. Period. That's the law everywhere except for royal and imperial families. Dad raised me as the heir from day one. My position is locked and tighter than a castle gate. But here's my philosophy. Brothers who fight together, win together. I don't want rivals. I want teammates. Train Kahir and Albert into capable men. And someday, I'll have 2 loyal commanders who share my blood. That's not a threat to my power. That's a multiplier. Ever since Mom died, Dad's been too busy with Duke stuff to be around much. So I basically became half-parent to these 2. Eldest brother equals substitute father. That's the saying here. And honestly, watching them grow up healthy and happy fills a part of me that military strategy and sword training never could. After dinner, I took both brothers for a walk in the castle garden. Flowers everywhere, butterflies dancing, sweet fragrance in the air. A perfect, peaceful moment after 2 days of blood and chaos. Kahir tugged my sleeve. Big brother, will the iron mine really make our family stronger? Absolutely. Iron means better weapons, better armor, stronger army. It's the foundation of military power. Albert nodded along very seriously, like he understood completely. He did not. But the commitment was adorable. But it won't happen overnight, I added, switching to serious mode. Mining operations need careful planning. Every step has to be solid. And we need to protect the mine from anyone who might want to take it. Kahir's face went full determination mode. Don't worry, big brother. I'll master swordsmanship and horsemanship and protect you and the family. Then Albert, sweet, tiny, 5-year-old Albert, puffed out his little chest and squeaked. Me too. I'll be big brother's helper, my heart. These two are going to be the death of me. Not enemies, not bandits. These two adorable children and their weaponized cuteness. I patted both their shoulders. Deal. We work hard together. For the family. A few days later, the mining officials sent back their report. I read it. I read it again. I read it a third time because my brain refused to accept how insanely good this news was. The Black Mountain iron deposit wasn't just a mine. It was a massive, high-quality, surface-level iron deposit. Surface level. That means open-pit mining, the easiest kind to extract. No deep tunnels, no complicated engineering, just dig and profit. I immediately called an emergency meeting with the senior officials, Sir Reynard, military, Arnold, mining, and Solank, finance. The four of us sat around the table, and I could practically see gold coins floating in everyone's eyes. Gentlemen, I said, holding up the geological report. This mine could change our family's destiny. But it also paints a target on our backs. We need to be smart. Reynard spoke first, because Reynard always speaks first when security is involved. I recommend a dedicated guard force for the mine immediately. Perimeter patrols, no unauthorized access, zero tolerance. Arnold, the mining chief, was practically shaking with excitement. Young master, the ore quality is exceptional. The vein extends deep and wide. At full capacity, we're looking at over 200 tons of iron or per month. 200 tons. Per month. I had to physically stop myself from making an undignified noise. Then Solank, the finance guy, whipped out his ledger so fast it was basically a magic trick. His fingers were trembling as he did the math. This is incredible. We can completely eliminate our external iron purchases. That's roughly 10,000 gold coins saved every single month. And the surplus, we could sell for. Stop right there. The room went quiet. Solank froze mid-calculation. I leaned forward. Iron ore is a strategic military resource. We are not selling a single grain of it. Everything we don't use gets stockpiled. Period. Solank blinked. Then his face went through a journey. Surprise, brief embarrassment, then respect. You're absolutely right, young master. Look, I don't blame the guy. He's a finance officer. His entire job is money in, money out, make the numbers go up. Of course, his first instinct was to sell surplus for profit. But I have 40 years of military knowledge screaming in my skull that you never sell strategic resources to potential enemies. Today's customer is tomorrow's opponent swinging a sword made from your iron at your face. Arnold backed me up immediately. The young master's wisdom is sound. Iron isn't just metal, it's power. Stockpiling secures our future against any threat. Reynard nodded gravely. And we must assume that once mining begins, word will eventually leak. We need to prepare for espionage, sabotage, and possibly direct military challenges. External enemies and internal traitors. I assign tasks. Reynard, build the security force. Pick soldiers whose loyalty is beyond question. Arnold, oversee extraction operations. Solank, create a budget. Make every coin count. Arnold raised one more concern. We'll need a lot of labor for full-scale mining. Workers, tools, facilities, it all costs money. I waved it off. Money isn't the problem. The family treasury can handle the startup costs. As for workers, I smiled. We have a dungeon full of captured bandits and regular prisoners sitting around doing nothing. Send them all to the mine. Consider it community service with extra steps. Solank's eyes lit up like someone had plugged him into a power socket. Brilliant. saves recruitment costs, and puts idle prisoners to productive use. Free labor force. Check. Massive iron supply. Check. Strategic resource monopoly for the entire southern region. Check. The Solbright family was already the most powerful house in the south. Now we're about to become the most powerful house in the south with an infinite iron supply and zero import costs. Dad left me in charge for a few weeks, and I accidentally turned our family into an industrial powerhouse. Whoops. Can't wait to see his face when he gets back. After the war council wrapped up with everyone pumped and motivated, I decided to visit the family weapons factory. Because what's the point of having infinite iron if your forge can't keep up? The Armory District sits in the northwest corner of Silver Eagle Fortress. 12 furnaces blasting fire, so intense the sky looks permanently sunburned. 3 thick stone walls separate it from the rest of the castle, with guards on top watching everyone who comes near. This place is basically our medieval military-industrial complex, and security is tighter than Reynard's jaw when he's angry. Barrett, the forge master, came running when he heard I was visiting. This man is built like a furnace himself, mid-40s, arms thicker than most people's legs, coal dust permanently embedded in his skin. He's got a nasty scar over his left eye from a furnace explosion 10 years ago. The furnace lost that fight, by the way. Barrett rebuilt it and went right back to hammering. Absolute unit. Young master, you shouldn't be here. The smoke is too. I waved him off. That's exactly why I need to be here. What's our monthly output? Barrett wiped his forehead with a coal-black hand, somehow making it dirtier. 100 sets of quality armor, 300 swords, 200 longbows with matching arrows. Everything triple inspected. I walked through the finished products section, running my fingers along rows of gleaming blades. Every single one had our Silver Eagle crest etched into the steel. Beautiful work. Genuinely top tier. But not enough. I asked to see the warehouse. 3 iron doors later, we're in a room smelling like oil and leather, stacked floor to ceiling with equipment. Barrett proudly showed off their latest innovation, double-forged breastplates that weigh 20% less, but block 30% more damage. Impressive engineering for a medieval world. Then I dropped the bomb. Barrett, I need you to increase production by 5 times. In 6 months, the man's face went through the 5 stages of grief in 2 seconds flat. F5 times. Young master, are you joking? He launched into a very reasonable, very panicked explanation of why this was completely insane. Our output is already the best in the kingdom outside the Royal Forge and the other great Duke families. We don't have enough skilled blacksmiths. Training master craftsmen takes years. And the biggest problem, we barely get enough iron ore to keep the current furnaces running. 5 times the output means 5 times the iron, which we simply don't have. Poor Barrett. He didn't know about the mine yet. The iron discovery was still classified. Only Reynard and a few top officials were in the loop. Barrett was trying to multiply bread without knowing I had a bakery hidden in my back pocket. I let him finish his panicked speech, then smiled. Barrett, what if I told you the iron problem is already solved? He blinked. The family recently discovered an enormous iron deposit. High quality, easy to extract. It'll be operational soon. Iron supply will never be a bottleneck again. Barrett's face went from impossible to Christmas morning, so fast I thought he'd pull a muscle. Really? If that's true, then we actually have a chance. Now for the real magic trick. Barrett's second concern was workforce. You can't train expert blacksmiths in 6 months. He was absolutely right about that. So I introduced him to a little concept from my past life. Have you ever heard of assembly line production? Barrett stared at me like I'd started speaking an alien language. Which, fair enough, assembly line manufacturing has literally never existed on this continent before. I was about to drop the Industrial Revolution on this man's head about 500 years early. Here's how it works, I explained. Right now, one blacksmith makes an entire sword from start to finish, right? Every step. Heating, shaping, grinding, sharpening, handle wrapping. One guy does it all. Barrett nodded. That's how it's always been done. Instead, we split the process. One person only heats the metal. Another only shapes it. Another only grinds. Another only sharpens. Each person does one thing, over and over, all day. They get incredibly fast and consistent at that one step. I could literally see the light bulb turning on behind Barrett's eyes. And here's the best part. The simple steps? Apprentices can do those. Training a master blacksmith takes years. Training someone to heat metal to the right color? Weeks. We recruit a ton of apprentices from nearby villages, stick them on the easy stations, and let the masters handle only the skilled work. Barrett's mouth was hanging open. The gears in his head were spinning so fast I could practically hear them grinding. Young master, that's genius. His voice cracked with excitement. If we do it that way, each worker becomes incredibly efficient at their task. We wouldn't need to train hundreds of master craftsmen. We'd just need enough for the critical steps. The apprentices handle everything else. Exactly. We could actually hit 5 times production in 6 months. Barrett was practically bouncing now, this enormous scar-faced mountain of a man hopping like an excited child. We'd need to build more workstations, recruit apprentices in bulk, redesign the workshop layout. He was already planning it in his head, mentally rearranging his entire forge around a production system that wouldn't be invented on Earth for centuries. I stood there watching Barrett's excitement and felt a weird mix of pride and guilt. Pride because I just revolutionized this world's manufacturing. Guilt because Henry Ford wouldn't be born for about 800 years and I just stole his homework from across dimensions. Sorry, Henry. The Solbright family needed it more. 5 times production. Unlimited iron. Assembly line manufacturing. In 6 months, our armory is going to be pumping out weapons and armor at a rate that would make every other noble family's jaw hit the floor. Dad left me in charge for a few weeks. He's going to come home and find out his 13-year-old son destroyed a bandit army, discovered an iron mine, invented industrial manufacturing, and probably accidentally started the Industrial Revolution. At this rate, I should be grounded for overachieving. Barrett was practically vibrating with excitement, and I hadn't even gotten to the good stuff yet. Assembly line production could theoretically boost output 10, 20, even 50 times if we had unlimited resources and workers. But the mine isn't fully operational yet, and we can't conjure trained apprentices out of thin air, so 5 times in 6 months is the realistic ceiling. That's fine. Rome wasn't built in a day, and my medieval military-industrial complex won't be either. In my head, this current armory is a starter forge. The tutorial version. My long-term vision is a full-scale weapons factory that would make this world's jaw collectively dislocate. But baby steps. Barrett, one more thing. Starting now, we're implementing a piece rate bonus system. What? Workers get paid extra based on how much they produce. More swords equals more coins in their pocket. It incentivizes speed and productivity. Barrett's eyes went supernova. That's brilliant. The craftsman will work twice as hard if there's bonus money on the table. But I held up a finger. We also need quality control. If people rush to make more and start producing garbage, we're worse off than before. I laid out the system. Every craftsman and apprentice gets ranked by skill level and assigned a personal number. Every single piece of equipment at every stage of production gets stamped with the worker's number. If a sword breaks in combat and we pull up the blade, we can trace exactly who made each part. Bad work. Punishment. Consistently bad work. Very serious punishment. This is straight from the Qin Dynasty playbook. Ancient China's most terrifying empire stamped every weapon with the craftsman's name. If your arrow failed on the battlefield, they could trace it back to you, and the consequences were, let's just say, career-ending, in the most permanent sense possible. Result? Qin weapons were the most reliable in Chinese history. Barrett looked at me like I'd just handed him the secrets of the universe. Young master, you're a genius. This system guarantees both quantity and quality. I liked Barrett more and more. Sure, he panicked at first when I said, 5 times output. But once he understood the plan, he immediately started figuring out how to execute it. That's not a coward. That's a pragmatist who needed data before committing. My kind of manager. Then I waved everyone else out of the room. This next part was classified. Barrett, I need you to gather your most loyal craftsmen. The ones whose families have served Solbright for generations. The ones who would die before betraying us. Barrett's face went from excited to dead serious in half a second. He could smell something big coming. What kind of weapon, young master? I pulled a piece of paper from inside my coat and handed it to him. His hand started shaking. On that paper was a detailed diagram I'd drawn from memory. A weapon that didn't exist on this continent. A weapon that changed the entire history of warfare in my past world. A crossbow. Let me explain why this is a nuclear-level game-changer. In this world, everyone uses regular bows. Bows are great weapons if you spend years training. A skilled archer needs incredible arm strength, perfect technique, and thousands of hours of practice. You can't just hand a farmer a bow and expect him to hit anything. A crossbow? Point. Pull trigger. Arrow goes where you're pointing. Done. A new recruit can learn to use one in days instead of years. It requires barely any physical strength. It's more accurate than a bow. It's less affected by wind. And the penetration power? The design I gave Barrett could punch through cloth armor at 300 meters and light metal armor at 200. In my past life, the Qin dynasty used crossbows to steamroll 6 rival kingdoms. It was the great equalizer. Suddenly your peasant conscripts could outshoot enemy archers who'd trained since childhood. I gave Barrett the single-shot infantry hand crossbow design. I'd already improved it from the historical version. Better trigger mechanism, more efficient draw system, optimized for mass production compatibility. Barrett's fingers traced the trigger mechanism on the diagram. His voice came out hoarse. This completely reinvents ranged warfare. This trigger design, it's ingenious. And this winch system. He looked up at me with awe. Young master, how did you come up with this? That's not important. I deflected smoothly. Because I remember it from my past life on another planet. Isn't really a conversation I want to have. Can you build it? Barrett took a deep breath, physically forcing his excitement into a controlled channel. I need time to study the blueprints. Fine. Pick your most trusted craftsman. Set up a secret underground workshop. All participants' families will be invited to stay at the castle as our honored guests. I said that last part with a pleasant smile. Barrett understood exactly what I meant. Honored guests is noble speak for hostages who guarantee your silence. Is it a nice thing to do? No. Is it necessary when you're developing a weapon that could shift the continental balance of power? Absolutely. Barrett nodded solemnly. I understand completely, young master. I let the smile drop. Anyone who leaks information about this project dies. Including you. Cold? Yes. Necessary? Also yes. I'm not playing games here. If another kingdom gets crossbow technology before we can mass produce them, we lose our advantage forever. Secrecy isn't optional, it's survival. One more thing, I added. While developing the prototype, I need you thinking about 3 problems. How to increase the firing speed, how to simplify the manufacturing process, and how to adapt the design for mass production on the assembly line. Barrett scribbled notes like his pen was on fire. Young master, once this weapon is operational, our army's combat effectiveness will multiply several times over. I gave him a smile that probably looked slightly terrifying. This is just the beginning. Get me a working prototype as fast as humanly possible. Yes, SIR. Barrett actually straightened up like a soldier receiving orders. This blacksmith was fired up. I patted his shoulder. The forge is yours. Don't disappoint me. I did one last tour of the facility, then left as the sun was setting. Standing on the castle walls, watching the lights of Silver Eagle Fortress flicker on across the territory, my brain was already racing 5 steps ahead. Assembly lines? Step 1. Crossbows? Step 2. Once the Black Mountain Iron Mine is at full production, I'm going to attempt blast furnace steel manufacturing. After the crossbow core is established, I'll develop a repeating crossbow, multiple shots without reloading. And then, siege engines that exist only in my past life memories. Weapons this world has never dreamed of. The military balance of this entire continent is about to get demolished. I looked out at the horizon where the soul-bright silver eagle banner fluttered against the darkening sky, and I could already picture it. That banner planted on every hilltop, every fortress, every capital that matters. And it all starts here, in a smoky forge where a scarred blacksmith is currently losing his mind over a piece of paper with a trigger mechanism drawn on it. The medieval era called. I'm about to leave it on read. Now, I wasn't there for this part personally, but based on what I learned later, here's what Dad was up to while I was back home revolutionizing the weapons industry and playing substitute Duke. Picture this, a column of elite knights thundering down the main highway, silver armor flashing in the sun, the soul-bright silver eagle banner snapping in the wind like it personally wanted to intimidate everyone within a 5-mile radius. At the front, looking like a recruitment poster for World's Most Intimidating Father, rode Duke Frederick Solbright. After 10-something days of riding, Dad's party finally reached the capital city. And let me tell you about this city, because it perfectly captures everything wrong and right about this world. The capital has two entrance lines. The commoner line was a sweaty, miserable traffic jam stretching forever. July heat absolutely crushing everyone. People dripping sweat, kids crying for water, adults fanning themselves with whatever they could find. And nobody dared complain, because the gate guards had very real weapons and very short patience. Commoners on this continent rank barely above slaves. Nobody cares if one disappears. That's not a joke. That's just how it is here, and it makes my modern soul want to scream. Right next to this suffering crowd, the noble entrance, practically empty. A handful of fancy-dressed aristocrats strolling through like they owned the place, which, technically, they did. Servants lined the path holding silver platters of fresh fruit and cold drinks. Cold drinks, while commoners 10 feet away were literally dying of heat stroke. The inequality was so extreme, it was almost cartoonish. Like someone designed a social system specifically to make a transmigrator from a modern world lose his mind. Anyway, when the gate guards spotted the Silver Eagle banner, they went from lazy summer afternoon to stand at attention faster than I've ever seen humans move. The captain dropped to one knee so fast he probably bruised it. Welcome to the capital, Duke Frederick. May your journey have been pleasant. Dad gave him the classic Frederick soul-bright response. A slight nod, a brief but respectful acknowledgement of the guard's service, and absolutely zero wasted words. The man communicates in compressed files. Maximum information, minimum syllables. They swept through the noble gate without stopping. The Silver Eagle banner cut through the city streets like a shark fin through water. People recognized it instantly. Some bowed, some stared, some scrambled to get out of the way. Other nobles actually approached to pay respects, because when you're one of the 5 great dukes, even in a city packed with aristocrats, you're still basically royalty with a different job title. Dad's city residence was a massive stone mansion with carved totems on the gates and enough square footage to qualify as its own zip code. The household staff was already lined up outside, perfectly arranged, bowing in unison. Welcome, Duke Frederick, Dad told everyone to rest, then walked into the main hall where a welcome feast was waiting. Fancy meats, aromatic dishes, the works. He sat down, started cutting his food with the precise elegance of a man who turns even eating into a power move, and asked the million-gold coin question. How are things in the capital? The butler's answer was basically, everything is terrible, sir. The old king was fading fast. The princes had gone from subtle political maneuvering to barely concealed cage match. Every faction in the capital was sharpening their knives, metaphorically and possibly literally, getting ready for what everyone knew was coming, a succession crisis. And my father, the man commanding the largest military force in the southern half of the kingdom, had just walked right into the middle of it. Back home, I was building crossbows and inventing assembly lines. Dad was walking into a political snake pit where one wrong handshake could start a civil war. We Solbrights really don't do relaxing vacations, do we? Again, I wasn't physically present for any of this. But Dad's people report everything to him, and Dad eventually told me everything. So here's the royal drama that was unfolding while I was back home playing Arms Dealer Simulator. Turns out Dad didn't just go to the capital for the annual Big Nobles Conference. He'd received a secret letter from the first prince, Aragon Klein, basically saying, "Get here now, we need to talk." And when a prince sends you encrypted mail with urgent vibes, you don't RSVP, maybe. Dad arrived at his city mansion, ate dinner like the composed predator he is, then stood at his study window, doing his signature move, staring dramatically into the darkness while processing 17 political crises simultaneously. Then the butler slipped in like a shadow. "Your Grace, the first prince's carriage has arrived at the back entrance." The back entrance. At night. In secret. Because nothing says healthy political system like the crown prince sneaking into a duke's house through the service door wearing a disguise. Prince Aragon walked in wearing a plain brown cloak like the world's worst spy costume. But you can't hide royal blood behind cheap fabric. The man moved like he owned every room he entered. When he pulled back his hood, Dad saw a face that basically screamed, "I am the king's son." Same high nose, same deep-set eyes as the current king. Except Aragon's pale gray eyes burned with an ambition and determination his aging father no longer possessed. He was in his early 30s, tall, and radiated that specific energy of a man who knows he should be king, but isn't yet. Think lion waiting for his turn. Duke Frederick, you don't need to bow, Aragon said, practically yanking Dad back upright. The number of people I can trust in this city shrinks every day. Your arrival is the first good news I've had in weeks. They sat down. The butler delivered wine and vanished. Door closed. Just two very powerful, very worried men in a room. Aragon didn't even touch his wine. He leaned forward and dropped a bomb so big it could have cracked the floor. My father's illness is far worse than anyone knows. He might not survive the year. Boom. There it is. The king is dying. Not getting old and tired, like the official story says. Actually, genuinely, terminally dying. Some rare disease that even the royal physicians can't cure. They're just buying time. Who else knows? Dad asked, immediately going into intelligence mode. Before now? Just me. Father locked the information down completely. The only reason I found out is because I bribed one of his doctors years ago. Aragon paused. But I can't guarantee my brothers don't have their own spies in the palace. They might know too. Let me break down why this is a catastrophic situation. The public story is that King Edward is just old and tired, so he delegated most governing duties to his princes and senior nobles. Nobody outside the inner circle knows he's actually on his deathbed. But the moment he dies, this kingdom is going to explode like a powder keg at a bonfire. Now, why does Dad support Aragon specifically? Because Dad is old school. Eldest legitimate son inherits. That's the rule for every noble family, and in Dad's mind, it should be the rule for kings too. But here's where it gets messy. Royal families aren't like regular noble families. Regular nobles marry one wife, have legitimate heirs, clean succession, done. But kings? Kings marry for politics. They take multiple consorts, each one representing a different political faction. Each faction pushes their prince, and succession becomes less about birth order and more about who has the bigger army and the dirtier tricks. This is why, fun historical fact, no empire or kingdom on this continent has ever lasted more than 1,000 years. Most don't even hit 500. Because every single succession is basically a civil war with fancy invitations. Aragon should have the advantage. He's the firstborn legitimate prince. Slam dunk, right? Wrong. Because 10 years ago, his mother, Queen Marguerite, died of illness. And she wasn't just any queen. She was Aragon's biggest political shield, his strongest connection, his ultimate backup plan. Gone. Then King Edward made it worse. He promoted the second Prince William's mother to official queen status. Overnight, William went from Prince number 2 to Prince with a queen mother, which in royal politics is like getting a power-up mushroom in a video game. Oh, and here's the extra spicy detail. Aragon's dead mother was originally from the royal family of the neighboring Celtic kingdom. So Aragon has foreign royal blood, which in domestic politics is either a massive advantage or a massive liability, depending on who's doing the talking. And then, because this story apparently needed more drama, there's the historical backdrop. 30-something years ago, one of the 5 great nomadic tribes from the Dos grasslands, the Tuoba tribe, assembled over 200,000 cavalry and invaded the clan kingdom. They rolled through the country like a lawnmower through grass, conquered half the kingdom in record time. Their army pointed straight at the capital. Why does that matter now? Because political alliances from that era shaped everything about the current power structure, including who married whom, who owes favors to whom, and who has secret grudges that have been simmering for 3 decades. So to summarize, the king is secretly dying, the princes are circling. Like vultures, every noble family is picking sides. My father just walked into the political equivalent of a minefield while wearing a blindfold, and back home his 14-year-old son is casually inventing the crossbow. This family does not do boring. Now let me fill in some royal backstory that I pieced together later, because you need this context to understand why my dad was sweating bullets in the capital. 30-something years ago, the Tuoba tribe, one of the 5 big nomad powers from the Dos grasslands, sent 200,000 cavalry pouring into the clan kingdom like a tsunami of horses and violence. They steamrolled half the country and were aimed straight at the capital. King Edward, freshly crowned and facing literal national extinction, had one option: beg the neighboring Celta kingdom for help. Celta said, "Sure, we'll save you," and then immediately handed Edward the most predatory rescue bill in history. Condition 1. Give us 1,000 square kilometers of your land and 5 million gold coins. You know, just a casual Tuesday transaction. Condition 2. Marry one of our princesses and make her your queen. Edward had zero leverage and zero options, so he signed. Celta sent troops. The nomads got beaten back. Kingdom saved. Hooray. But the aftermath was where things got truly ugly. See, that 1,000 square kilometers Edward surrendered? It wasn't royal land. It belonged to dozens of noble families who'd managed those territories for centuries. Edward basically sold other people's houses to pay his rent. Sure, he offered replacement land from royal holdings, but swapping your family's 400-year-old estate for some random patch of undeveloped dirt is like trading a mansion for a parking lot. Equal area, my foot. Those nobles were furious. They couldn't say much publicly. You don't yell at the king, but privately? They hated Edward. They hated Queen Marguerite, the Celta princess he married. And they especially hated Prince Aragon, the son of that foreign opportunist queen. To them, Celta didn't rescue the kingdom. Celta mugged it during a crisis. So Aragon's got a chunk of the nobility that despises him for existing. Wonderful foundation for a future king. And his biggest rival? Second Prince William. William's mother, Elisa Lehman, is the daughter of Duke Eureka Lehman, one of the other 5 great dukes, specifically the guardian of the eastern border. When Marguerite died and Elisa got promoted to queen, William went from second banana to grandson of a great duke and son of the current queen. His power level basically doubled overnight. So the scoreboard looks like this. Aragon has legitimacy and dad's support. William has his grandpa's massive eastern army and his mom sitting on the queen's throne. The other princes are lurking in the shadows with their own backers, and the dying king is the only cork keeping this bottle of chaos sealed. Dad and Aragon spent hours in that study planning strategy. The key problem: too many nobles hate Aragon because of his Celta blood. Dad's advice was pure political realism. Prejudice fades when you wave enough gold in front of it. We need to offer these nobles deals they can't refuse. Buy the ones we can buy. Isolate the ones we can't. Aragon nodded. He understood that in the Game of Thrones, Game of Succession, mercy looks like weakness. You play to win, or you don't play at all. They plotted until deep into the night. Then Aragon snuck back out the servants' entrance, disappearing into the darkness like a very stressed ghost. Over the following days, Dad started working the capital like a political machine. Secret meetings, quiet conversations, promises whispered over expensive wine. Aragon stepped up his public appearances, trying to look kingly and competent and definitely not half foreign. The capital looked calm on the surface. Underneath, it was a volcano gargling magma. Meanwhile, back at Silver Eagle Fortress, my part of the story, something much more exciting was happening. I was woken up before dawn by aggressive knocking. Wilson stood at my door looking apologetic. Young master, Forge Master Barrett has been waiting outside the castle since before sunrise. Says it's extremely urgent. My sleepiness evaporated like water on a hot forge. It had only been 2 weeks since I gave Barrett the crossbow blueprints. 2 weeks. There's no way he already. Send him to the West Tower meeting room. I'll be there in 5 minutes. My fingers were literally trembling as I threw on clothes. If Barrett actually pulled this off in 14 days, I'm giving that man a raise, a title, and possibly a statue. I walked into the meeting room and found Barrett pacing like a caged animal. His eyes were bloodshot. This man clearly hadn't slept in days, possibly hadn't slept since I gave him the assignment. At his feet was a long object wrapped in oiled cloth. Young master, we did it. His voice was so hoarse it sounded like sandpaper gargling gravel. He unwrapped the cloth with shaking hands, and there it was. A crossbow. Jet black. Sleek. And somehow even more beautiful than what I'd drawn. I picked it up. Heavy. Solid. The weight of it in my hands made my heart hammer. Barrett, you magnificent, sleep-deprived, scar-faced genius. 2 weeks. The man built the future of warfare in 2 weeks. On 4 hours of sleep total, probably. This crossbow is about to change everything. And by everything, I mean the entire military balance of this continent. But first, we needed to test it. I held that crossbow like a newborn baby. Except this baby could kill a man at 100 meters. The body was made from premium teak wood. The string was twisted from specially treated ox sinew. The trigger mechanism was so precisely engineered it would make a watchmaker weep. Stamped on the side, 001, the first of its kind on this entire continent. Barrett's personal masterpiece. He leaned in and whispered the test results like he was sharing state secrets. Which, technically, he was. 100 meters, punches through 3 layers of cowhide. 50 meters, penetrates light chainmail. Those numbers were better than my projections. My blueprint was supposed to be good. Barrett somehow made it better. This man took my homework and got extra credit. Take me to the range. Now, Barrett had converted the underground storage room beneath the west wing into a secret shooting range. 20 straw dummies lined up in a dark corridor, closest at 50 meters, farthest past 100. The corners were littered with shattered armor pieces from previous tests, looking like a graveyard for protective equipment that had a very bad day. Barrett handed me a custom bolt, 3-sided pyramid tip, forged from refined iron, gleaming under torchlight like it had a personal grudge against anything standing in front of it. I loaded up. The winch mechanism made cocking the string almost effortless. One smooth pull, click, done. A child could do this. When I heard that click of the bolt locking into firing position, a shiver ran straight up my spine. That click? That's the sound of every archer on this continent becoming obsolete. I aimed at an oak shield 50 meters away, pulled the trigger. Whoosh, thwack. The bolt's scream and the impact sound hit almost simultaneously. I jogged over to inspect the damage, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. The 3-sided arrowhead had punched completely through the oak shield. Just a clean, perfect triangular hole on the front. When I yanked the bolt out, which took actual effort, wood chips showered everywhere and the back of the shield was covered in spiderweb cracks. An oak shield, punched clean through at 50 meters. Regular arrows bounce off these things. Moving targets, I ordered. My voice cracked slightly from excitement, which I will deny until death. 3 guards started pulling ropes, making the straw dummies swing left and right. I loaded again, didn't even bother with careful aiming, just pointed and squeezed. Bolt went straight through the dummy's heart. I didn't even try hard. This weapon is disgustingly accurate. Wagner, your turn. My guard captain had been standing there practically drooling. He grabbed the crossbow like a kid unwrapping a birthday present, tested the grip, and whispered, "The feel of this weapon is extraordinary," with the kind of reverence most people reserve for religious experiences. Wagner took a more careful approach than me, controlled breathing, waiting for the perfect moment when the swinging target slowed. The entire room went dead silent. Everyone was staring. The dummy swayed, slowed, click, whoosh, thwack, dead center, heart shot. The dummy exploded in a shower of straw and wood chips, leaving a clean hole you could stick your finger through. Wagner sucked in air through his teeth. This was a man who'd been to war, who'd seen what weapons could do. And he looked genuinely shaken. By the gods, he breathed. No years of archery training needed. No arm strength required. Any farmer could learn this in half a day, he understood. He immediately, completely understood what this weapon meant for warfare. This wasn't an improvement. This was an extinction event for traditional archery. Barrett shoved his record book at me, hands trembling. 30 consecutive shots, 0 deformation in the bow arms. Maximum effective range, 120 meters. Optimal kill zone, within 80. It's not perfect yet, I said, running my finger along the joint where the bow arm meets the stock. There's a slight vibration here that affects accuracy, and the bolt channel needs to be smoother to reduce friction. Barrett looked like I'd just told him his masterpiece had a smudge. But I wasn't being critical. I was being strategic. Perfection comes later. Right now, we need quantity. First batch, 500 crossbows. 3 months. Barrett went pale. Young master, even if I pull every craftsman and work them around the clock, that's at least 6 months. New policy. Master apprentice bonus system. I started pacing. Every senior craftsman who trains an apprentice to independently handle a complete production step gets 1 gold coin. Barrett's eyes went the size of saucers. 1 gold coin is 3 months of a regular craftsman's salary. Every old blacksmith on the territory is about to become the world's most enthusiastic teacher. And, if that apprentice trains their own apprentice, the original master gets 50 silver coins as well. I basically created a pyramid scheme of skill transfer. Except instead of scamming people, everyone wins. Masters get rich. Apprentices get careers. I get crossbows. Beautiful. I'm also sending you 2,000 young recruits from across the territory as apprentice labor. You assign them to different assembly line stations. But the core components, triggers, winch mechanisms, anything critical, only your most trusted craftsmen touch those. Each part gets manufactured separately. Final assembly is done by you personally. Barrett was nodding so hard his head might have detached. His eyes were on fire. And Barrett, don't stop at this design. Start developing variants. A cavalry crossbow that can be used on horseback. A foot stirrup version for heavier draw weight. This hand crossbow is step 1. I want a whole family of crossbow weapons. Also, I added, watching his face carefully, announced to every craftsman in the forge, anyone who develops a new weapon design or successfully improves an existing one gets a reward. Minimum 10 gold coins. Maximum 10,000. Barrett looked like he might actually faint. 10,000 gold coins for a single innovation. That's buy a mansion and retire your grandchildren. Money. Every blacksmith in the armory was about to become a research scientist working overtime. And one final thing. I dropped my voice to Arctic temperature. Everything you saw today, everything we discussed, nobody outside this room ever hears a word. Anyone who talks, I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. The look on my face finished it for me. Wagner and the guards nodded instantly. Barrett swallowed hard and nodded. Later, as the first light of dawn crept across the sky, I stood alone on the highest balcony of Silver Eagle Fortress, turning crossbow 001 over in my hands. The metal was cold against my fingers. The trigger mechanism clicked softly as I tested it. That beautiful, world-ending little click. I could see it already. Rows upon rows of soul-bright crossbowmen, standing in formation, bolts loaded. An enemy army charges toward them, confident in their superior numbers. 300 meters. 200. 120. Click, 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 click. A wall of bolts darkens the sky. The enemy never reaches our line. Welcome to the future, Lafabranca. It has a trigger, and it doesn't care how many years you spent training with a bow. Now, while I was busy playing medieval Tony Stark with my crossbow factory, trouble was brewing on the western border. And I wouldn't learn the full details until later, but here's what went down. Deep in the Sunset Mountain Range, a massive chain of mountains stretching across 3 kingdoms, so huge that nobody has ever crossed the whole thing, live over 100 mountain clans. Think tough, isolated tribal people who've spent generations learning every rock and cave in those peaks. The mountains form a natural wall along the western edge of our territory, which is normally great news. Free fortress. Thanks, geology. One of the top 3 clans up there is the Karn tribe. Over 10,000 people. In mountain clan terms, that's basically a superpower. They hunt, gather fruit, and farm small plots near their camp. But this year, Mother Nature decided to be a complete jerk. No rain for almost 2 months. Streams dried up. Crops withered. The Karn tribe's food situation went from manageable to we're all going to starve in about 6 weeks. Their leadership gathered in the chief's wooden hut for an emergency meeting. Picture 5 worried mountain men sitting around a campfire, all thinking the same terrifying thought. What do we eat? Chief bawled. Old guy, white hair, white beard, the kind of face that says, I've survived 60 winters and I'm tired, sat staring into the flames while his advisors delivered increasingly terrible news. Chief, our food stores are almost empty. The hunting grounds are barren. Animals migrated because of the drought. We're sending teams further and further out for less and less game. Then Aiden, their military commander, built like a brick wall with the cunning face of a fox, dropped the suggestion everyone was thinking but nobody wanted to say. We go downhill. We raid the Lowland Lords. The room went silent. Everyone knew what go downhill meant. Rob the rich plains nobles of their grain. Quick, dirty, and incredibly dangerous. The Lowland Lords are backed by the Soulbright family, someone pointed out. You know, the family that's ruled the South for 300 years and has 50,000 soldiers. Even Aiden's confidence flickered at that. He knew our name. Everyone on this continent knows our name. We're basically the final boss of the southern region. But Aiden rallied fast. We hit small lords only. Tiny baronies that can't fight back. We move fast, leave no evidence, and disappear back into the mountains before anyone figures out who did it. And even if the Solbrights find out, what are they going to do? March an army up into our mountains? We've lived here for generations. We know every trail, every cave, every cliff. Their fancy cavalry is useless up here. He had a point. An annoyingly good point. Our army is designed for plains warfare. Sending heavy cavalry into steep mountain forests is like driving a sports car through a swamp. Expensive, embarrassing, and ultimately pointless. Chief Bald weighed the risks, stared into that fire for what was probably a dramatic eternity, and made his decision. We do it, but carefully. Fast in, fast out, minimal footprint. He also wisely added, don't put all our eggs in one basket. Search for new water sources. Trade with other clans. This raid buys us time, not a solution. Yes, Chief. Aiden was already mentally sharpening his axe. A few nights later, the western edge of our territory. Oak Town, a small settlement belonging to the Laura family, one of our vassal baronies. It was the middle of the night. Quiet, peaceful, boring. Then war horns shattered the silence. By the time the townspeople stumbled out of their houses, half the town was already on fire. Figures in animal furs were sprinting through the streets like shadows with weapons. Arrows whistled out of the darkness. Mountain raiders, a guard screamed. Then a flying axe buried itself in his chest, and he stopped screaming. Aiden personally led 30 elite warriors straight to the grain warehouse. His men moved like wolves, fast, coordinated, lethal. The town's guards were Baron-level soldiers. Low budget, minimal training. They went down like bowling pins. Aiden swung his massive battle axe through anyone who stood in his way, carving a path to the food stores with the efficiency of a man who'd been planning this for days. The Laura family is a small Baron house. Their military capability is, let's be generous and call it, decorative. Against Aiden's mountain warriors, men who wrestle bears for cardio, they never stood a chance. And just like that, while I was back at Silver Eagle Fortress perfecting crossbow designs and dreaming about assembly line optimization, someone was raiding MY territory. My vassal, my people, my grain. I didn't know it yet, but when I found out, oh, someone was going to have a very bad day. The Laura family's town guards were basically decorative. 100-something militia guys who probably trained once a month and spent the rest playing cards. Against Aiden's mountain warriors, they lasted about as long as a snowball in a furnace. The grain warehouse doors got smashed open, and when those hungry Karn warriors saw stacks of neatly packed grain sacks, they cheered like they'd found buried treasure. Which, to starving mountain people, they basically had. Aiden screamed, stop staring and start loading. And within minutes, they had every last sack on stolen horse carts, vanishing into the night like professional grocery thieves. After they left, one bloody guard crawled out of a pile of bodies. One survivor. Just enough to tell the story. And this wasn't a one-time thing. Over the next few days, I kept receiving reports. One after another. 5 parchment scrolls lined up on my desk, each one saying the same thing. Mountain people attacked. Grain stolen. Please help. 5 raids. 5 vassal territories. In less than a week, my fingers hammered the oak table. This was getting personal. Mountain clans, I muttered. I realized I knew almost nothing about these people. Time to fix that. Wilson, what can you tell me about the mountain tribes? The old butler stroked his silver beard. His accessing ancient knowledge database gesture and gave me the rundown. The mountain clans are indigenous people living in the Sunset Mountain Range, mostly isolated, mostly hunters. The attackers have been identified as the Karn tribe, one of the 3 biggest clans. 10,000 people. Fierce warriors. Masters of mountain terrain. They normally don't come down to raid unless they're facing a survival crisis, Wilson added. So they're desperate, not greedy. Interesting. That changes the calculation entirely. Wilson urged me to act fast. If we don't respond, our family's reputation takes a massive hit. Our vassals will lose faith in our protection. You're right, I agreed. But charging into those mountains with our army would be idiotic. The terrain is their playground. Our cavalry is useless on cliff paths. We'd be stumbling around blind while they pick us off from every shadow. But here's what I didn't say out loud, because some thoughts are too strategic to share with anyone yet. These mountain warriors are exactly what I need. Think about it. The Soulbright army is outstanding on flat ground. Heavy cavalry, infantry formations, siege capability. But mountains? We're terrible. We have zero mountain warfare capability. And in a continent with plenty of mountainous terrain, that's a glaring weakness. The Karn tribe? 10,000 people raised from birth in steep mountains. Expert climbers, expert trackers, expert ambush fighters. They are, by definition, the perfect mountain infantry. I don't want to destroy them. I want to recruit them. But mountain people are proud, stubborn, independent. If I walk up and say, "Hey, want to work for me?" they'll laugh in my face and throw rocks at my horse. These aren't people you can buy with gold. They don't even use gold. No. First, I need to show them what happens when you mess with the Soulbright family. Demonstrate overwhelming power. Make them understand that fighting us is suicide. Then, once they're properly terrified, I extend the olive branch. Join us, and you'll never starve again. Stick first. Carrot second. Classic strategy. Works on every continent, in every timeline. Wilson, send for Sir Reynard. Meanwhile, and again, I learned all this afterward, the Karn tribe was having the time of their lives. Their mountain camp was deep in a valley surrounded by towering cliffs, accessible only through a few hidden paths. And right in the center of camp stood a mountain of stolen grain sacks. The entire tribe was gathered around it, staring at the food like it was made of solid gold. Old women were literally kissing the ground, thanking the mountain gods. Kids were running around touching the sacks. Warriors were chest bumping. It was basically Christmas, New Year's, and a birthday party rolled into one. Aiden stood at the front, still splattered with dried blood, soaking up the worship like a rock star. "Hail, Commander Aiden!" the young warriors screamed. Chief Bald opened a sack. Golden wheat grains poured out, glittering in the sunlight. The good stuff. Enough to feed the whole tribe through the crisis. Distribute it by population. Everyone eats. Store the rest. That night, the Karn tribe threw a massive celebration. Bonfire the size of a house. Warriors dancing and telling raid stories. Aiden was the star, dramatically reenacting how the Lowland guards ran like scared rabbits. Everyone laughed. Homemade fruit wine flowed freely. Bowls clinked. To the brave warriors of KRN. KRN. It was the happiest night they'd had in months. But at the edge of the celebration, old Chief Bald sat alone on a rock, staring through the flames into the darkness beyond. Not celebrating. Thinking. His granddaughter Leah brought him soup. "Grandpa, why aren't you celebrating with everyone?" Bald took the bowl and patted her hand gently. "I'm thinking about our future." "What do you mean?" "The plainsmen won't let this go. Especially the Soulbright family." His voice was low and rough. "When I was young, I saw their army once. Disciplined. Equipped with the best gear. If they decide to retaliate..." Leo went pale. "What do we do?" Bald sipped his soup, steam hiding his weathered face. "Pray the mountain gods protect us. Hope they can't find us. Or hope they decide a few minor lords' grain isn't worth the trouble of climbing these mountains." "Oh, Bald. Sweet, hopeful Bald. I am coming. And I'm bringing something much scarier than cavalry. I'm bringing a plan. Time to go to work." I rode out at the head of a column so massive it looked like a black river flowing across the plains. Night shadow beneath me, deep blue cloak billowing, silver eagle crest catching the morning sun. Behind me, 1,000 cavalry and 4 infantry regiments. Over 10,000 professional soldiers. Not farmer conscripts, not part-time militia. Real soldiers who eat, sleep, and breathe combat. You know how some people respond to a bee sting with a rolled-up newspaper? I responded to grain theft with the military equivalent of a nuclear strike. Was this overkill for one mountain tribe? Absolutely. That was the point. I didn't bring 10,000 soldiers because I needed 10,000 soldiers. I brought 10,000 soldiers because I wanted every mountain clan within 100 kilometers to look down from their cliffs and collectively soil their furs. Sir Reynard rode up beside me, keeping close because he still mentally categorized this operation as babysitting the teenager who happens to command an army. "Young master, we're less than 10 kilometers from Baron Laura's territory. Speed up. We camp at Oaktown tonight." The army surged forward. The ground literally trembled under the combined march of thousands of boots and hooves. If you were a bird flying overhead, you'd see a dark serpent of steel and banners stretching across the landscape. Intimidating from the ground, terrifying from above. Meanwhile, at Laura's castle, the raided lords had gathered for an emergency meeting. It was basically a support group for nobles who'd been mugged. Those mountain savages are lawless, Baron Laura snarled. They stole my grain and killed my guards. Same here. They strike like lightning and vanish like ghosts. The Karn tribe has over 10,000 people. None of us can fight them alone. We need the Solbrights, standard vassal behavior. Panic, complain, then beg the big boss for help. Which is exactly what I'm here for. Then Laura's butler burst in. My lord, the Solbright army is less than 10 kilometers away. They say to prepare for their arrival. The room went from funeral to birthday party in 0 seconds. Laura slammed his fist on the table so hard the wine cups jumped. They're here. Those mountain rats are finished. Every lord in the room started celebrating like they'd already won. Calm down, gentlemen. I haven't even unpacked yet. Now, up in the mountains, things were going less well for the Karn tribe. See, old Chief Bald wasn't stupid. He'd posted scouts along the mountain edge specifically to watch for retaliation. So the second my army marched past their observation points, a sweating, gasping scout sprinted into the Karn camp. Chief, the Solbright army is coming. I saw them. Bald's face went through every negative emotion in existence. How many? At least 10,000. With cavalry, I wish I could have photographed the exact moment that number registered on Bald's face. 10,000 soldiers. Against his tribe of 10,000 total, including women, children, and elderly. His actual fighting force was maybe 2,000 or 3,000. He sent for Aiden and the elders immediately. Yeah, Bald. Remember that. Hope they don't bother coming. Strategy from last night? The one where you prayed the mountain gods would protect you? The mountain gods said no. We arrived at Oaktown to a hero's welcome. Laura and the other lords were lined up at the castle gate, like excited puppies waiting for their owner to come home. Laura bowed so deep I thought he might fold in half. Young Master Lin En, your arrival is our greatest hope. Every other lord bowed and echoed similar sentiments. I could practically see cartoon hearts floating above their heads. Please, no formalities, I said, projecting that calm, confident energy that makes people feel safe. The Solbright family doesn't abandon its vassals. My soldiers set up camp on the field outside town. 10,000 men establishing a military base in about 2 hours. Organized. Efficient. The kind of logistics that says, we do this all the time. Inside the castle, Laura threw a banquet. Roasted venison, honey bread, wine. Nice spread for a small baron. I appreciated the effort. After a few rounds of drinks, the lords started briefing me on the Karn warriors. Their intel was actually useful. They're cunning as foxes and fierce as wolves. They know every path in those mountains. Our men can't track them. Their archers can kill at 100 meters. In close combat, they fight like cornered animals. No fear of death. Good. Good. Keep talking. Every detail helps. What these lords saw as terrifying obstacles, I saw as a recruitment brochure. Expert mountain fighters. Deadly archers. Fearless in combat. Intimate knowledge of terrain no outsider can navigate. These are exactly the soldiers I want. I just need to convince them that working for me is better than working against me. But first, the stick. Gentlemen, I said, setting down my wine cup. I understand your concerns. The Solbright name doesn't get trampled without consequences. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, I'll show these mountain warriors what it means to challenge our family. Every lord in that room exhaled with relief, so hard the candles flickered. Tomorrow was going to be very educational for the Karn tribe. The curriculum? A crash course in why you should not steal from the Solbrights. And the final exam? A job offer they couldn't refuse. While the Karn tribe was having their emergency war council, which I obviously learned about later, let me just say, they were going through all the stages. Aiden, predictably, wanted violence. Let them come. These mountains are ours. I'll bury them here. Elder Morn, the skinny smart one, wanted to run. We migrate deeper into the mountains. They can't chase us forever. Run? Aiden spat. Since when are Karn warriors cowards? It's not cowardice, it's survival. Morn shot back. Classic military debate. The guy who wants to fight versus the guy who wants to flee, while the old wise leader sits between them trying not to have a heart attack. Chief Bald finally stood up and chose option C. Dig in. Defend the mountain passes. Make any invasion so painful that even a 10,000-strong army thinks twice. Aiden got assigned to ambush the Eastern Trail. Morn got told to prepare evacuation routes for civilians. Not a bad plan, honestly. For a mountain tribe with no knowledge of what they were actually facing, it was pretty solid. Too bad I had no intention of playing their game. Next morning, dawn. My army was assembled on the plains in full formation, facing the mountains. 10,000 soldiers standing in perfect rows, armor catching the early light, banners flying. It was the kind of visual that makes painters weep and enemies reconsider their life choices. I stood on a hill surveying the tree line. Somewhere in those forests, thousands of mountain warriors were hiding, waiting, probably sharpening weapons and giving each other pep talks. Sir Reynard rode up, looking concerned. "Young master, are you really going to set fire to the mountain? Relax. I'm not burning the whole range down. Just that narrow valley section." I pointed. "Wind direction is in our favor. Controlled burn. I want smoke, not destruction." On my signal, dozens of fire arrows streaked across the sky and slammed into the dry brush at the mountain's edge. Whoosh! The undergrowth exploded into flames. Smoke billowed upward in massive columns, visible for miles. This wasn't about damage. This was a message, written in fire, in 70-foot-tall letters. "We are here. We are not playing." Up in the mountains, Karn scouts saw the smoke and nearly had a collective cardiac event. "They're burning the mountain." Aiden grabbed his axe, eyes literally on fire, metaphorical fire, unlike the very real fire I'd just started. "Let me go kill those cowards." "And oh," Bald roared. "That's exactly what they want. If we charge out, we run straight into their trap. Good instincts, old man. I respect that." Then came phase 2 of my plan. While the fire got their attention, I'd send a messenger up through the Eastern Trail. Not just any messenger, Karen Solbright, a cousin from a branch family. The man had iron nerves and zero fear, which are useful qualities when you're walking into a camp full of angry mountain warriors who recently discovered their forest was on fire. The Karn warriors captured him immediately, obviously, dragged him before Bald with his hands tied. Karen stood there, bound and surrounded by hostile warriors, and looked Bald dead in the eye without flinching. "I am the envoy of young Master Lin En. He invites the Karn chief to come down for a peaceful discussion." Aiden laughed. "Peaceful? You set our mountain on fire, and you want to talk?" Karen didn't blink. "If we wanted you dead, 10,000 soldiers would already be in these mountains. My master genuinely wants to resolve this peacefully." That shut the room up pretty quick. Bald had Karen untied and sent to rest while the elders debated. And boy did they debate. "It's a trap," one elder, slamming the table. "If we refuse, they'll burn us out or starve us." We saw their army. Bald, being realistic. "Then we fight." Aiden, being Aiden. "Fight with what?" Bald, being even more realistic. "Our warriors are brave, but bravery doesn't stop 10,000 armored soldiers and a cavalry unit." Silence. The kind of silence where everyone realizes the tough guy in the room doesn't have the answer either. Bald stood up. "I'm going down personally." Every elder tried to stop him. He waved them off. "If I don't come back, Aiden becomes chief. Take the tribe deeper into the mountains." Old man courage. Walking into the lion's den because his people needed him to. I hadn't even met Bald yet, and I already respected him. Noon. Bald emerged from the tree line with 10 elite warriors. I was waiting in front of my army. 10,000 soldiers in perfect formation behind me. The silver eagle banner overhead. Night shadow standing perfectly still beneath me, because even my horse understood dramatic timing. Bald's eyes widened slightly when he saw me. I could read his expression clearly. "Wait, the enemy commander is a teenager?" "Yeah, buddy." Surprise. "I am Bald, chief of the Karn tribe," he said, his voice rough as mountain gravel. "What do you want, young plainsman?" I gave him a slight bow, genuine respect, not mockery. This old man walked into enemy territory knowing he might not walk out. That deserves acknowledgement. "Chief Bald, your courage is admirable. But I didn't bring this army for war. I came for peace." His eyes narrowed. "Peace? Your soldiers are camped on our doorstep. Your fire arrows are burning our forests." Fair point. I gestured behind me, and my entire army took 10 synchronized steps backward. 10,000 men, moving as one, creating distance. Bald's eyebrows shot up. He didn't expect that. After a moment, he told his warriors to stay put and walked forward alone. We sat down in a tent I'd set up between our forces. Just the two of us. Old mountain chief and teenage duke in training. The most unlikely negotiation table in the kingdom. I got straight to business. Chief Bald, mountain clans and plains lords have always stayed out of each other's business. So why did your warriors raid 5 noble territories, steal tons of grain, and kill dozens of guards? Bald didn't flinch. Drought. Our crops died. Our streams dried up. We raid or we starve. Honest answer. I appreciated that. Survival doesn't justify raiding, I replied, letting my voice sharpen just enough. But I can offer you something better than stolen grain. Bald's eyes flickered. Suspicious, curious, hopeful, all at once. The hook was in. Now came the part where I reel him in. What choice? Bald asked, eyebrow raised. I leaned forward and delivered my pitch. Swear loyalty to me. Your warriors join my army. In return, I provide the Karn tribe with enough supplies to never worry about survival again. You keep your traditions, your customs, your internal governance. I don't interfere with how you run your tribe. Bald stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Why would you do this? You could just crush us with your army. I smiled. A smart hunter knows that taming a beast is worth far more than killing it. And your warriors, Chief Bald, are exactly the beasts I need. Okay, calling mountain warriors beasts to their chief's face was maybe not the most diplomatic phrasing, but Bald seemed to appreciate the honesty more than he'd appreciate flattery. He pushed back. Plains nobles have always treated us like savages. Why should I trust you? Fair question. I reached into my coat and placed something on the table between us. A silver badge, our family heir's personal seal. Silver eagle with wings spread, surrounded by thorns and stars. This thing is basically the medieval equivalent of a nuclear launch code. You can't fake it, and showing it means you're putting your entire family's honor on the line. Because I'm the heir of House Soulbright, the future Silver Radiance Duke. My promise is the promise of the entire Southern Territory. Bald's eyes locked onto that badge. His fingers reached out and touched the engraving, feeling every line. I could see the calculation happening behind those old, weathered eyes. This wasn't some random noble making empty promises. This was the next Duke. You carry more weight than I expected, young man, he murmured. I pressed forward. I swear on my ancestors. If the Karn tribe pledges loyalty, you will receive 1. Yearly supplies guaranteed. 2. Full preservation of your traditions and self-governance. 3. Military pay and honor for your warriors. An oath on one's ancestors is the most sacred contract on this continent. Breaking it supposedly brings an eternal curse. I don't personally believe in curses, but everyone else does, and that's what matters. The tent went quiet. Bald stared at the fire for what felt like an eternity. I need to discuss this with my people. Give me 3 days. 3 days. I'll be here, back at the Karn camp. Things went approximately as chaotically as I expected. Aiden, predictably, went ballistic. He buried his axe in a wooden post so hard it split. Serve a plains lord? This is disgrace. We are free mountain people. Our ancestors would spit on us, some elders agreed. Others didn't. But he's offering guaranteed food. Forever. And he won't control our internal affairs, one elder said quietly, eyes darting to the nearly empty grain storage. The tribe split into 2 screaming factions, pro-loyalty versus anti-loyalty. Basically every family dinner argument ever, but with the survival of 10,000 people hanging in the balance. Bald's granddaughter Leah asked the question everyone was really thinking. Grandpa, do you actually trust that young noble? Bald stared into the campfire with those ancient eyes. I saw something different in him. Something I've never seen in a plains lord before. Real respect. Meanwhile, Sir Reynard was expressing his own doubts. Young master, taming mountain people won't be easy. I know, I said calmly. But it's not impossible either. You know why no previous Soulbright lord ever managed to bring the mountain clans under our banner? Reynard frowned. Because they're too stubborn? No. Because nobody ever tried to actually understand them. Nobody respected them. I intend to be the first. Then I played my ace. And even if the Karn refuse, they're not the only tribe up there. The entire mountain range is in drought. Every clan is desperate. If Karn says no, I go talk to tribe number 2, and 3, and 4. Someone will say yes. And once one tribe joins us, the others will follow, because nobody wants to be the last tribe standing alone in a famine while their neighbors are eating soul-bright grain. Reynard's eyes widened. He suddenly realized this wasn't a gamble. It was a system. Even if my first offer failed, The strategy was designed to succeed eventually. I'm not fishing with one hook. I'm fishing with a net. 3 days of chaos in the Karn camp. Bald went door to door. Every elder, every warrior, every family. Listen to everyone. The tribe was tearing itself apart with debate. Day 3 arrived. No consensus. People were still arguing. Bald had heard enough. He stood up. Every voice in camp died instantly. My people. His voice was old, but it carried like thunder. We stand at a crossroads. Keep resisting. Maybe we save our pride, but we march toward extinction. Accept this offer. We lose some freedom, but we gain survival. And a future. He walked to the center of the gathering and raised his bronze battle axe, the symbol of the chief's authority. As chief of the Karn tribe, I declare, we pledge loyalty to Lin En Soulbright. Aiden's face went the color of a storm cloud. Chief, you can't. This is my decision. Bald's roar shook the air. Anyone who disagrees can leave. Right now, dead. Silence. Nobody moved. Not Aiden. Not the angry elders. Not a single person. Because in the end, even the proudest warrior knows the difference between pride and suicide. Noon. The entire Karn tribe, all of them, warriors, elders, women, children, came down the mountain. I was waiting on the plain with my army in perfect formation behind me. 10,000 soldiers. 1,000 cavalry. Silver eagle banners flying. Bald walked forward, knelt on one knee, and presented his bronze war axe with both hands. The Karn tribe pledges loyalty to you, Lord Lin En. From this day forward, we are the most faithful warriors of House Soulbright. I took the axe. And then, this was important, I did not hand it back immediately. Instead, I lifted it high above my head. The bronze blade caught the sunlight and blazed like a second sun. My voice boomed across the valley, loud enough for every Karn tribesman and every Soulbright soldier to hear. Warriors of the Karn tribe. Today you do not bow to a noble. You stand beside House Soulbright as equals. I could see it ripple through the crowd. Karn warriors who'd been staring at the ground in shame suddenly looked up. Aiden's iron jaw unclenched by approximately 1 millimeter. Old women grabbed each other's hands. Children peeked out from behind their mothers. They expected humiliation. I gave them dignity. Because here's what every previous Soulbright lord got wrong. You don't recruit proud warriors by making them feel small. You recruit them by making them feel valued. These mountain warriors were about to become the most loyal soldiers in my entire army. Not because I threatened them. Not because I bribed them. Because I was the first Plains lord in history who looked at them and said, "You're not my servants. You're my partners." The Karn tribe problem. Solved. The mountain infantry corps I've been dreaming about. Born. And I didn't lose a single soldier doing it. Well, I burned a small patch of forest, but nature will grow that back. Probably. I slammed that bronze war axe into a boulder, so hard sparks flew everywhere like a medieval fireworks show. Very dramatic. I'd been practicing that move in my head for 3 days. I swear, as heir of House Soulbright, my voice echoed off every cliff in the valley. From today, the Karn tribe is no longer a lone wolf hiding in the wilderness. You are the sharpest blade in the south. I pulled the axe free and pointed it at the mountains. Your warriors will wear the finest armor. Carry the deadliest weapons. Win glory that will echo through generations. Then I swung toward the crowd of Karn civilians. The old women, the children, the families who'd been starving weeks ago. Your people will never go hungry again. Every season, supply convoys will roll into your camp. Your elders will live in comfort. Your children will grow up strong. I was on a roll. Full motivational speech mode. Past life military training plus 14 years of noble education plus genuine passion equals one heck of a presentation. Your traditions will be sacred. Your beliefs, your customs, your honor, preserved forever. I crank the volume up to 11. And more, from this day, the Karn tribe becomes the guardian of the Sunset Mountain Range. Every mountain clan will look up to your banner. You are no longer a tribe hiding in caves. You are the most powerful mountain force in the entire South. I handed the axe back to Bald with both hands. Chief Bald, this isn't an ending. This is the beginning of a new era for the Karn people. Let's build a future that would make your ancestors proud. The valley erupted. Soulbright soldiers roaring. Karn warriors roaring. 10,000 voices shaking the mountain air. Even Aiden, the guy who wanted to bury his axe in my skull 3 days ago, was standing there with his mouth slightly open, looking at me like he was recalculating every assumption he'd ever made about Plains nobles. What nobody noticed, but I absolutely did, were the shadows on the distant ridge. Scouts from other mountain clans. They'd been watching the whole thing. See, when you park 10,000 soldiers at the base of a mountain range and set fires, word travels. Every tribe within 50 kilometers had sent spies to see what was happening. And they'd just witnessed the mighty Karn tribe, one of the 3 biggest clans, kneel before a teenage lord and get treated like royalty for doing it. That image was going to spread through these mountains faster than the wildfire I started. Back at Iron Rock Tribe's camp, Chief Hog was having a full meltdown. Say that again. His bone drinking cup shattered on the floor. His face was the color of a tomato having an existential crisis. It's true, Chief, the scout stammered. I watched Bald personally present his war axe to the young Soulbright Lord. The kid promised supplies, respect for traditions, military equipment, and made the Karn the official guardians of the mountain range. Impossible, Hog staggered backward. Bald is the most stubborn old goat in these mountains. He'd rather eat rocks than bow to a Plains noble. There must be a reason. Similar scenes played out across the entire Sunset Range. Tribal leaders everywhere were choking on their dinner, dropping their cups, and shouting, "He did what?" at terrified messengers. The balance of power in these mountains had just shifted like a tectonic plate, and everyone felt it. Phase 2 of my mountain recruitment plan, the conference. With Karn secured, I had Bald send formal invitations to every reachable mountain clan. Come to the Karn camp for a grand meeting to discuss the future. Most tribes had no idea why Karn was suddenly hosting a summit. Only a few, like Iron Rock, knew the real story. But almost everyone came, because the Karn tribe is influential enough that ignoring their invitation would be rude, and many clans had intermarriage ties with Karn. When your cousin's wife's uncle is a Karn elder, you show up when they call. While we waited for the tribes to gather, I put Bald to work on logistics. Step 1. Census the Karn population. I needed exact numbers, how many mouths to feed, how many warriors available for my new mountain corps. Step 2. Prepare the conference to be impressive. These other chiefs needed to walk in and think, wow, being allied with the Soulbrights looks amazing. Bald threw himself into the preparations with the energy of a man who'd found new purpose. He understood this wasn't just about the Karn anymore. This was about reshaping the entire political landscape of the Sunset Mountains. Every tribe that joined us was one more ally, one more unit for my mountain army, one more group that would never raid our territory again. The invitations went out. Messengers scrambled through hidden trails and secret passes, carrying Karn's seal to every corner of the range. One by one, the responses came back, "Will attend." Even Iron Rock, whose chief had literally broken his favorite cup learning about our alliance, confirmed they were coming. Because curiosity beats anger every time. They had to know what I was offering. As the conference date approached, the Karn camp transformed. Dozens of fire pits blazed in the central clearing. Whole sheep roasted on spits, filling the mountain air with the most amazing smell. Warriors and elders from a dozen different clans started arriving, some suspicious, some curious, all hungry. My plan was elegant in its simplicity. Show them what life looks like inside the Soulbright Alliance, and let them compare it to starving alone in a drought. Nobody chooses hunger when the alternative is a full plate and a steady paycheck. The Mountain Clan Conference was about to begin, and when it was over, I intended to walk away with not just one tribe, but an entire mountain nation under the Soulbright banner. Bald called me ambitious. Reynard called me optimistic. I called it Tuesday. The conference was perfect theater, and I was backstage, waiting for my cue. Bald played host like a pro. The Karn camp was loaded with roasting whole sheep, 5-year-aged honey wine, blazing fire pits, the works. Chiefs from nearly every mountain clan in the Sunset Range had shown up. Hog from the Iron Rock tribe, Mohe from the Grey Claw tribe, Drak from the Stoneheart tribe, and a bunch more. All sitting around eating meat and getting suspicious. Drak, a scarred, blunt-spoken guy who's been friends with Bald for decades, tore off a leg of lamb and wiped his greasy fingers on his beard. Classy. So Bald, what's this about? You didn't invite us all here just for dinner, right? He chomped down. Not complaining, though. With this drought, I haven't eaten this well in months. Appreciate the hospitality. Bald deflected smoothly. Relax, Drak. Have some wine first. This is our special reserve. Aged 5 years. My girl Leah was pouring drinks with graceful poise, but her eyes kept darting toward the big tent at the edge of camp. My tent. She knew the show was about to start. Mohei from Grey Claw was the first to notice something off. The man had eyes like a hawk. He sipped his wine and scanned the camp. Bald, you've got some new faces around here. Those guards don't look like your usual mountain warriors. Drak stopped chewing and squinted at the Karn warriors. Yeah, and since when does Karn have steel weapons? Those blades weren't forged in any mountain smithy I've ever seen. Busted. They noticed the Solbright supplied equipment. Bald's poker face cracked slightly. You're all very observant. But tonight is about friendship, not questions. Another drink. Then Hog, Iron Rock's chief, who already knew the truth, slammed his cup down so hard the table shook. Cut the act, Bald. I know what you're hiding. The entire feast went silent. Even the campfire seemed to hold its breath. The Karn tribe surrendered to the Solbright family. Hog's voice hit like a thunderbolt. Every chief at that table froze. Drak's lamb leg slipped from his fingers and plopped onto his armor, leaving a grease stain he definitely didn't notice because his brain was too busy short-circuiting. Bald. Drak stood up slowly, eyes wide as dinner plates. Tell me Hog is lying. Bald set his cup down. The trembling in his hand was barely visible. He looked at every chief, one by one, then spoke. It's true. The Karn tribe has pledged loyalty to Lord Lin En Solbright. Silence. The kind of silence where you can hear a moth blink. Then chaos. Have you lost your mind? Drak exploded. You betrayed mountain tradition. You bowed to Plains people. Mohea's cold laugh cut through. I knew it was a trap. Plains nobles are all liars. You've been fooled, Bald. We haven't been fooled, Bald replied, steady as stone. Lord Lin En promised to respect our traditions, protect our homeland, supply our people, and appointed us guardians of the entire Sunset Range. Guardians? Drak's voice cracked. That's a fancy word for servants. It's a fancy word for surviving, Bald shot back. How many of your people died from hunger this summer, Drak? How many children went to sleep crying? I refuse to watch more of my people starve when there's a better option on the table. The camp became a powder keg of emotions. Chiefs arguing, elders whispering, warriors gripping weapons, everyone feeling some combination of shock, rage, fear, and, buried deep where pride couldn't reach it, hope. Then came my entrance. 20 soldiers in silver-gray armor marched into the firelight, their breastplates engraved with gleaming silver eagles. They split into 2 perfect lines, creating a corridor, and I walked through, black cloak drifting in the night breeze. No weapons, hands at my sides, face completely calm, firelight dancing across my features like the universe itself was doing my lighting design. Solbright, Mohei jumped up, hand flying to his short sword. The camp erupted, tribal bodyguards drew weapons, Karn warriors stepped between everyone, and for about 3 seconds the entire situation was one sneeze away from a bloodbath. But I didn't stop walking, didn't flinch, didn't reach for a weapon I wasn't carrying. I walked straight to the central bonfire, stood where every single chief could see me, and spoke. Good evening, chiefs. My voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. When a room is dead silent and terrified, a whisper carries further than a scream. I am Lin En Solbright, heir of House Solbright, future Silver Radiance Duke, and I want to thank you all for accepting the invitation to dinner. I said it like I was hosting a casual get-together, like there weren't 50 armed mountain warriors pointing sharp objects in my general direction, like this was a garden party and not a diplomatic standoff one wrong word away from violence. Every chief was staring at me, some with hostility, some with curiosity, all of them thinking the same thing. This kid is the one who brought Bald to his knees. Yeah, gentlemen. This kid. The one standing unarmed in the middle of your camp, surrounded by your warriors, smiling like he owns the place. Because in about 20 minutes, I plan to. Mohei pointed his bone knife at my face. Plains nobles who enter mountain clan camps should be stoned to death by tradition. I took a step forward, toward the knife, because apparently my survival instinct took the night off. You want to kill me? That rusty toothpick isn't qualified. I kept my voice casual, like he'd just offered me a mildly unpleasant appetizer. But before anyone starts throwing rocks, would you let me say a few words? Drak, bless his greasy, lamb-eating heart. grabbed Mohea's arm before things got stabby. Let him talk. I want to hear what kind of sweet talking convinced that old foxbald to roll over. I nodded gratefully and walked to the central bonfire. The flames painted my face with dancing light, which I'm told looked quite dramatic. I wasn't trying to look dramatic. I was trying not to visibly sweat. I know what you're all thinking. Plains nobles and mountain people have been enemies for generations. Blood soaked into every inch of this land. I let that hang in the air. But tonight, I didn't bring swords. I brought an olive branch. Not conquest. Partnership. I pulled out a sheepskin scroll and unrolled it for everyone to see. This is the official alliance pact between House Soulbright and the Karn tribe. Written in ink, sealed with my family crest. It guarantees 3 things. Quarterly supply shipments sufficient to feed the entire tribe, complete respect for all traditions and beliefs, and an independent mountain military corps where Karn warriors answer only to the Soulbright High Command. Drock squinted. Words on paper mean nothing. I smiled. Which is why I brought proof. 3 claps. That was the signal. From outside the camp came the unmistakable sound of wagon wheels crunching over gravel. 10 fully loaded horse carts rolled into the firelight, stacked high with grain sacks and wooden crates. First shipment of aid supplies. Delivered tonight. I walked to the nearest cart, untied a grain sack, and let golden wheat pour out like liquid sunshine. The firelight caught every grain. Premium wheat from the most fertile land in the south. Enough for the entire Karn tribe to survive this drought with grain to spare. Then I cracked open a wooden crate. Inside, nestled in straw, were rows of brand-new military-grade weapons gleaming like they'd been polished by angels. These aren't gifts, they're advance payment. Every warrior a tribe contributes to my mountain corps receives full equipment and supplies. The camp went absolutely electric. Young warriors from various tribes were literally craning their necks, pushing forward to get a better look. Mohei tried to maintain his angry face, but his eyes betrayed him. They were glued to those weapons like a cat watching a laser pointer. Drock's tough guy expression cracked about 30%. Tempting supplies. But what's the real cost? What about our souls? Our freedom? Bald stood up and walked to my side. This was unrehearsed. The old man just felt it was time. Drock, my old friend, his voice went heavy. Do you know what Karn's infant survival rate was last year? Less than half. Our elders don't live past 50. He paused. When I watched our children chewing tree bark because there was nothing else to eat, I finally understood. Stubborn pride doesn't fill empty stomachs. Boom. That hit the room like a sledgehammer wrapped in sadness. Several chiefs looked away. One elder wiped his eyes. I picked up where Bald left off. I don't want slaves. I want allies. The Sunset Mountains need mountain warriors to guard them. Mountain tribes need plains resources and technology. It's a trade, not a takeover. I painted them a picture. Imagine your people no longer dying from treatable diseases. Your children learning to read and craft in warm shelters. Your warriors wearing real armor, earning real glory on real battlefields. All it costs is sending some of your fighters to join my mountain corps. Drock asked the question I'd been waiting for. And if we refuse, then I respect your choice completely. I said it without hesitation. Supply aid is only for allies. But I'll establish a fair price trade route open to all mountain clans. No strings attached. See what I did there? Refusing doesn't mean punishment. It just means you miss out on the VIP package while your neighbors who said yes are eating wheat and wearing steel armor. Social pressure does the rest. FOMO is the most powerful weapon in any negotiator's arsenal. Hog from Iron Rock, who'd been sitting there radiating hostility like an angry furnace, finally exploded. Pretty words. Plains nobles have tried to conquer us for centuries. Now suddenly you're generous? This is a scam. I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled out a small cloth bag and poured a handful of seeds into my palm. Improved wheat seeds. Drought-resistant. Disease-resistant. Yields double that of regular wheat. Any cooperating tribe gets enough seeds to plant full fields, plus farming guidance. Hog stared at those seeds. His throat bobbed. I knew from Bald's intel that Iron Rock's territory is incredibly barren. They lose people to starvation every year. Those tiny seeds in my palm were basically tiny miracles to a man watching his people die. Time for the closer. I know change takes time. You don't need to decide tonight. I raised my voice so everyone heard clearly. Go home. Talk to your people. 1 week from now, We meet here again, and you give me your answers. Whatever you decide, House Soulbright will respect the will of the mountain clans. No pressure, no threats, no deadlines that feel like ultimatums. Just think about it and come back. Because here's the psychology. The moment these chiefs get home and their starving tribes hear about free wheat, new weapons, drought-resistant seeds, and guaranteed supplies, the people will make the decision for them. No chief can look his hungry children in the eye and say, "I turned down free food because of tradition." Drak exchanged a look with Mohei, then turned to me. "Young man, your words have reached us. But centuries of tradition don't change in one night. We'll give you our answer in a week." He left first. Others followed. Hogg glared at Bald on his way out, but I noticed his eyes had shifted from pure hatred to conflicted hatred. Progress. When the last chief disappeared into the darkness, I exhaled so hard I nearly collapsed. My forehead was drenched in sweat. That was, without exaggeration, the most stressful 2 hours of both my lives combined. Standing unarmed in a camp full of hostile mountain warriors, one wrong word away from being turned into a pincushion. Bald handed me a cup of honey wine. "Lord Lin En, you performed better than I imagined." I laughed weakly. "Drak is even more stubborn than you described." "But he wavered," Bald said knowingly. "I saw it, especially when you showed the wheat seeds." Stoneheart tribe has been struggling badly. Leah appeared from the shadows with a wet towel. "Grandpa, how many tribes do you think will agree?" Bald looked up at the stars. "At least half. Hunger is the best salesman, and Lord Lin En showed them the cure for hunger. At least half. I'd take that. Once half join, the other half will follow within a year. Nobody wants to be the last tribe starving alone while their neighbors feast." I wiped my forehead and stared into the dying embers. 1 week. 7 days for these proud, stubborn, starving mountain warriors to decide if centuries of isolation are worth more than full bellies and steel swords. I already knew the answer. Hunger always wins. I wasn't there for the tribal debates, obviously. But word travels fast in mountains where everyone is related to everyone, and I eventually got the full picture. Let me tell you, my sales pitch worked beautifully. Stoneheart tribe, underground cave, 30 elders sitting in a circle looking constipated with worry. Grand Elder Ulf, a scary old man missing 3 fingers, probably lost them to something violent and probably on purpose, slammed his mutilated hand on the stone table. Shameful. Karn bowed to a child, Drak, sitting calmly in his stone chair, spinning his bone cup like he was stirring his own thoughts. Ulf, how many children did we lose last winter? Silence. A young warrior answered quietly. 27, chief. 27 dead kids. Out of maybe 100 births per year. In a tribe of only 3,000 people, that's not a statistic. That's a catastrophe. 27, Drak repeated, his voice heavy enough to crack stone. And with this drought, how many will we lose this autumn? 40? 50? You could feel the room shift. Pride is a wonderful thing until you're counting tiny graves. A scarred warrior asked the practical question. Did the Plains Lord really promise quarterly food deliveries? Drak reached into a leather bag and pulled out the seeds I'd given him, plus a wooden crate containing one of our steel war blades. One swing of that sword through a wooden post, clean cut, smooth as butter. Their best weapons needed 5 chops to do the same thing. The room collectively inhaled. Then a female elder asked the question that actually mattered most. Will we still be allowed to perform our sacred rituals? Will the mountain god forgive us? Drak assured her. Traditions preserved, ceremonies protected. They'd even get livestock for sacrificial offerings. I threw that in specifically because I did my homework. When you're negotiating with religious mountain people, you don't just promise food. You promise their gods won't be angry. Ulf made one last stand. These are empty promises. Once we lower our weapons, they'll treat us like cattle. Drak shut him down with the ultimate argument. If Bald, the craftiest old fox in these mountains, bet his entire tribe on this deal, then the deal is probably worth taking. I trust his judgment. Vote time. Everyone who supports the alliance, raise your weapon. One by one, axes and swords went up. Over 2/3. Even Ulf, face the color of an angry plum, slowly raised his bone staff. Then it's decided. Stoneheart tribe joins the Soulbright Alliance. Not to abandon our traditions, but to make sure our traditions survive. Boom. Tribe number 2. Secured. Grey Claw tribe. Camp on a cliff edge, wind screaming through rock crevices like a banshee choir. Mohei sat cross-legged by a fire with my gift, sword laid in front of him. 20 core members circled around, looking grim. Warrior Chief Grayler, face decorated with claw scars from solo killing a mountain lion during his coming-of-age ceremony. Because mountain people are insane, sneered immediately. So we're going to wag our tails like dogs for the plains people? Mohei tossed him the steel sword. Try it. Grayler swung casually at a wooden post as thick as a wrist. Clean through. One cut. The post fell with the smoothest cross-section you've ever seen. Everyone stared. Our weapons need 5 strikes to do that, Mohei said calmly. Imagine hunting with these. Imagine fighting with these. Mohei's mother, Marka, clearly the real power in this family, spoke up. Weapons are nice, but freedom is priceless. Grey Claw has never knelt to anyone. Mother, Mohei's voice went soft. Remember the plague 10 years ago? Marka's eyes dimmed. That plague killed a third of Grey Claw, including Mohei's father and 2 brothers. If we'd had plains doctors and medicine, father might still be alive. Mohei let that sink in. They're promising quarterly medical supplies and visiting physicians. That hit different. You could see it ripple through the room. Every person calculating how many family members they'd lost to diseases that plains people cure with common herbs. A young hunter asked nervously, "They really won't force us to change? Our rituals, our hunting traditions, our coming-of-age ceremonies." The Soulbright heir promised to respect everything. And Bald went first. If they break their word, that old fox will burn the alliance down himself. Marka actually laughed. You've always admired Bald, haven't you? Mohei allowed himself a tiny smile. That old man is slippery as a mountain fox, but he never makes a bad deal. If he bet his entire tribe, this Lin En kid must be the real thing. Grayler ran his thumb along the steel blade one more time, then sighed. The sound of a proud man accepting reality. Fine, but I have one condition. I personally pick which Grey Claw warriors join the Mountain Corps. I won't let our men be used as cannon fodder. Fair, Mohei nodded. Anyone else object? Nobody did. Then Grey Claw joins. Not for the Plains Lord. For our future. Tribe number 3, locked eye in. Similar conversations exploded across the entire Sunset Mountain range that week. Every cave, every cliff camp, every forest clearing, the same debate. Pride versus survival. Tradition versus progress. Freedom versus food. And in every single one, the same argument won. Dead children don't care about tradition. 1 week later, I arrived at the Karn camp at dawn with Reynard, dozens of supply wagons, and my best, I am a reasonable and trustworthy leader, face. I stood on a raised platform in the center of camp, silver-gray Soulbright, cloak on my shoulders, eagle badge catching the morning light. Bald on my left, Reynard on my right. Below us, Karn warriors stood in formation wearing their new Soulbright-issued gear, looking like an entirely different fighting force than the fur-wearing raiders from a few weeks ago. The stage was set. The wagons were loaded. The morning sun painted the ancient mountain camp in gold. Now I just had to wait and see how many chiefs would walk out of those mountains and into my alliance. Bald predicted at least half. I was betting on more. Because I didn't just offer them food and weapons. I offered them something no Plains Lord in history ever bothered to offer mountain people, dignity. And dignity, combined with full bellies and steel swords, that's an offer nobody walks away from. The moment the first sunlight hit the valley, I saw them coming. Drakh and Stoneheart tribe. First through the gate. The old man marched in wearing traditional beast-hide armor, stone axe on his hip, 20 elite warriors behind him. He walked straight up to me with the energy of a man who'd spent a week arguing with his entire tribe and won by sheer stubbornness. Soulbright boy, Stoneheart accepts your offer. No small talk. No pleasantries. Just, we're in. He handed me a bone token carved with their mountain totem. I handed him a silver eagle badge. He pinned it to his chest without hesitation. Deal done. Next, Mohei and Grey Claw arrived right after. Still wearing his trademark ice-cold expression, but the murder in his eyes had been downgraded to mild suspicion. Progress. Lin En Soulbright. He used my full name without any title, which in mountain culture is actually a sign of respect. Means he considers me an equal, not a superior. Grey Claw joins your mountain corps. His warriors brought a wooden chest containing a pair of razor-sharp bone knives wrapped in gray wolf fur. Grey Claw's war gift. It means our warriors fight for you. Beautiful. Tribe 3. Collected. Then the floodgates opened. Phoenix Feather Tribe. Master bowmakers who not only pledged warriors, but volunteered to manufacture arrows for the entire mountain core. Free archery supply chain. Yes, please. Sky Wolf Tribe rolled in wearing wolf pelts and looking absolutely terrifying. Their chief declared, "We're not here for grain. We're here for glory." I love this guy already. Rift Valley Tribe brought a crew of hardcore mountain guerrilla fighters. Their chief offered them as scouts and advance units. These people specialize in ambush warfare on impossible terrain. Exactly what I needed. One by one, tribe after tribe, throughout the entire morning and afternoon. I met each chief personally, exchanged tokens, learned their needs, understood their strengths. Now, did everyone show up? No. Hog from Iron Rock never appeared. Several other tribes stayed away too. Some thought I was running a scam. Some weren't desperate enough yet. Their food situation wasn't as dire, so my offer didn't feel urgent. Some just fundamentally didn't trust any Plains noble, period. Was I disappointed? Honestly, not even a little. Getting 35 tribes to ally with a Plains family in 1 week, after centuries of mutual distrust, is basically a diplomatic miracle. I expected maybe half. I got more than half. The ones who refused will come around eventually. Once they see their neighbors eating well, wearing steel, and thriving while they're still chewing bark. Jealousy is a more reliable recruiter than any speech I could give. Bald appeared at my shoulder. They'll come eventually. I know, I smiled. Let them watch. Results speak louder than promises. Sunset. The big ceremony. I stood on the raised platform overlooking representatives from 35 mountain tribes. Hundreds of warriors, dozens of chiefs, thousands of years of mountain tradition gathered in one place. Bald's voice boomed across the valley. Today, the history of the Sunset Mountains will be rewritten. Attendants brought out a massive stone table with a bronze bowl the size of a bathtub, filled to the brim with strong liquor. I drew my sword, sliced my palm. OW, by the way, that hurt. Nobody mentions how much blood oaths actually sting, and let my blood drip into the wine. Blood for oath. Honor shared. Drock stepped up next. Cut his palm. Blood in the bowl. Blood for oath. Life and death together, Mohe followed. Then Black Rock. Snow Wolf. Rift Valley. One after another, 35 chiefs sliced their palms and bled into that bowl. 36 bloodlines mixing in bronze. A pact that cannot be broken on this continent without invoking eternal dishonor. I lifted the massive bowl. It was heavy, my arms were screaming, and shouted with everything I had. From this day forward, the Mountain Core is officially established. House Solbright and the 35 tribes, together to glory, together to glory. 1,000 warriors roared it back. The sound hit the cliff walls and bounced around the valley like thunder trapped in a bottle. Birds launched from every tree within a mile. That night, the celebration was epic. 100 roasted sheep. Dozens of barrels of premium wine I'd brought specifically for this occasion. Warriors from tribes that had been strangers, or even rivals, sitting around fires sharing meat, trading stories, getting drunk together. Mountain fruit wine mixed with soul-bright grape wine, which honestly tasted terrible, but nobody cared because the vibe was immaculate. I sat at the head table watching it all unfold. Proud. Absolutely. But also calculating. Because the real work starts now. I have a 10,000-strong mountain army composed of 35 different tribes who've never fought together, barely trust each other, and have zero experience with organized military operations. Turning this mob of talented individuals into a coherent fighting force is going to be like herding cats. Heavily armed, extremely proud cats who could kill a bear with a sharp stick. Fun times ahead. Next morning, the Hangover Council meeting. 35 chiefs crammed around a stone table, arguing about troop contributions like it was a potluck, and nobody wanted to bring the expensive dish. Grey Claw contributes 400. Maximum. Mohe slammed the table. Any more, and who guards our hunting grounds? Drock snorted. 400? You have 2,000 warriors. Stop being cheap. I sat at the head of the table tapping my fingers, deliberately staying quiet. This was intentional. Let them argue. Let them negotiate among themselves. If I dictate numbers, I'm a tyrant. If they decide together, they own the decision. Leadership Psychology 101. Bald, reading the room perfectly, cleared his throat. Instead of fighting, why don't we each state what we can contribute? Lord Lin En, what total would you consider appropriate? Every eye turned to me. I smiled pleasantly. That's for you all to decide. I just want a force strong enough to matter, but not so large that it leaves your tribes defenseless. Perfect answer. Sounds humble. Actually means, give me as many warriors as possible, but think it's your idea. Phoenix Feather went first. 150 elite archers. BlackRock. 200 warriors. The numbers kept coming. My scribe was writing furiously. When the last tribe reported in, the total was 9,000. Plus Karn's 1,000. Bald calculated. That's exactly 10,000. 10,000 mountain warriors. An entire mountain corps materializing from nothing in less than a month. Drak stroked his beard. 10,000 is impressive. But how do we organize them? Excellent question, Drak. And I happen to have very detailed plans for exactly that. The Soulbright military machine now had heavy cavalry for the plains, professional infantry for everything else, a secret crossbow program about to revolutionize ranged combat, an iron mine funding the whole operation, and a 10,000-strong mountain corps for terrain our regular army can't touch. Dad left for the capital 3 weeks ago. He's going to come home and find out his son assembled an entirely new branch of the military from scratch. I really hope he doesn't ground me. Time for the part where I turn 10,000 wild mountain warriors into an actual army, which is kind of like organizing a zoo, except every animal has an axe. I propose dividing the corps into 10 battalions of 1,000, I said, unrolling my organizational chart. Each battalion will be a mix of warriors from 3 or 4 different tribes. Several chiefs instantly looked at me like I'd suggested they eat their own boots. Mixed units? Exactly. The Mountain Corps is not a collection of tribal warbands. We need to break clan boundaries. I pointed at my diagram. For example, Battalion 1, Stoneheart melee fighters in front, Phoenix Feather archers providing ranged support, Rift Valley hunters as scouts. Each group does what they're best at, covering each other's weaknesses. Drak stroked his chin. That actually makes sense. Of course it does. This is combined arms doctrine, the most fundamental principle of effective military organization. I just described it using words that mountain people could relate to instead of jargon from a military textbook that doesn't exist on this planet. Each battalion gets 1 commander and 2 deputies. I continued. Officers must come from different tribes. Training is handled by the battalion commander, but deployment authority stays with me. Subtle, right? They get to pick their own officers, feeling of autonomy. But I control when and where the army moves, actual power. Everyone gets face. I get control. Political engineering at its finest. The chiefs huddled and argued for a while, then nodded. Sold. Then Mohei asked the question. Who commands the entire corps? The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Every chief was suddenly doing mental math, calculating whether their guy might get the top job. The position of corps commander means power over 10,000 warriors. That's a big chair. The commander of the mountain corps will be Aiden of the Karn tribe. Aiden, who'd been lurking in a corner probably planning his next angry speech, nearly jumped out of his own skin. Me, he caught himself, slammed his mouth shut, and tried to look dignified. Too late, buddy. We all saw the cartoon surprise face. I waved him forward. He walked to the table like his legs were made of wood, every chief's eyes drilling into him. Karn was the first tribe to pledge loyalty, I announced clearly. And Aiden is renowned for his courage and tactical instincts. He is the ideal choice. Here's what I didn't say. Aiden was the guy who least wanted to join me. He called bald senile. He wanted to bury axes in my soldiers. And now I'm handing him command of the entire mountain army. Why? Because nothing converts a skeptic faster than trust. Aiden spent weeks resenting this alliance. Now I've just given him the most important military position any mountain warrior has ever held. His loyalty isn't bought. It's earned by showing I believe in him more than he believes in himself. Also, having the most hot-headed warrior as my general means he's channeling all that aggressive energy for me instead of against me. Anger management through promotion. Deputy Commander, Mohei of Grey Claw. Mohei gave his signature cold grunt, but didn't object. The man who pointed a knife at my face 2 weeks ago was now my second in command. Character development, speedrun complete. I told everyone the plan. Scouts would find a defensible valley in the mountains for a permanent base. All warriors needed to report to Karn camp within 2 weeks for initial organization. then transfer to the new base for real training. Nobody objected. Meeting adjourned. 2 weeks flew by. Warriors poured into Karn camp from every direction. Stone-faced melee bruisers, silent archers, quick-footed scouts. 10,000 of the Sunset Range's finest fighters, all converging in one place. It was like a fantasy RPG guild recruitment event, except everyone was real and everything smelled like campfire and animal hide. I sent over 100 experienced officers from the Soulbright regular army to help with training. Were there culture clashes? Oh, absolutely. Plains officers telling mountain warriors to stand in straight lines was comedy gold for the first few days. Mountain men don't do straight lines. They do aggressive clustering and creative spacing, but Aiden and Mohei, working together despite barely tolerating each other, gradually smoothed things out. Aiden led with passion and fire. Mohei led with cold precision. Together, they somehow made it work. The mountain warriors started learning formation discipline while keeping their natural guerrilla instincts. I visited regularly, tweaking tactics, encouraging teamwork, making sure the mixed tribe battalions were actually bonding instead of secretly plotting tribal grudge matches over campfire positioning. And the supplies flowed. Weapons, armor, grain, medicine, everything I promised, delivered on schedule, no excuses. When the tribal chiefs saw cart after cart rolling and loaded with exactly what I'd sworn to provide, the last traces of suspicion melted away. Trust isn't built with words. It's built with wagons. Before heading home, I had one more genius move to execute. I sat down with Baron Laura and proposed turning Oak Town into Oak City, a dedicated trade hub for Mountain Plains commerce. The Soulbright family funds the expansion. Mountain tribes bring furs, rare ores, herbs. We provide salt, grain, tools, medicine. Even non-allied tribes can trade here, because every mountain person who walks into Oak City sees what cooperation with Soulbright looks like. It's a giant advertisement disguised as a marketplace. Revenue split, 70% Soulbright, 30% Laura. Baron Laura agreed so fast, I think he pulled a muscle. The man does nothing and gets 30% of a monopoly trade hub. He probably thought he was dreaming. The other raided nobles got trading privileges in the new city as compensation. And speaking of the raids, here's my favorite part. The stolen grain. Remember? The whole reason I marched 10,000 soldiers out here? Those sacks of wheat the Karn warriors stole from multiple noble territories? Every single raided lord, Laura included, publicly declared, "What theft?" That grain was our voluntary donation to the Mountain Corps Military Supply Fund. They literally rewrote history in one sentence. Yesterday's robbery became today's generous patriotic contribution. Nobody filed complaints. Nobody demanded compensation. Because being part of the Soulbright Alliance network and having trade rights in the new Oak City was worth infinitely more than a few sacks of wheat. Politics is just storytelling with better incentives. So let me tally up what I accomplished on this little field trip. 35 mountain tribes recruited. 10,000 elite mountain warriors organized into a formal military corps. A permanent mountain base established. A monopoly trade city under construction. Former enemies transformed into loyal allies. Stolen grain retroactively reclassified as donations. Oh, and 0 civilian casualties. Well, except for that patch of forest I burned, but the trees will grow back. I rode Night Shadow back towards Silver Eagle Fortress with supply wagons behind me and a very satisfied smirk on my face. Dad went to the capital to play politics. I stayed home and built an empire. I wonder which one of us had a more productive month. I walked through the gates of Silver Eagle Fortress feeling like the greatest military genius in continental history. Mountain Corps assembled. 35 tribes recruited. Trade city planned. Iron mine running. Crossbow program advancing. Then Solank, my finance officer, materialized like a ghost made of bad news. I hadn't even SAT down yet. My butt was literally hovering above the chair when this man appeared with 2 account books and an expression that screamed, "We need to talk about money, and you're going to hate it, young master. We're spending gold faster than a waterfall moves water. If this continues, we'll have to crack open the family reserves. The reserves. The emergency fund. The centuries of Soulbright ancestors saving for a rainy day. Piggy bank that you never touch unless the kingdom is literally on fire." And Solank was suggesting we might need to smash it open. Details, I said, sitting down with a sinking feeling. Solank didn't sit. Instead, he pulled out an even thicker ledger from his coat like a magician producing a rabbit, except this rabbit was made of financial pain. Item 1, Black Mountain Iron Mine. 3,000 hired miners on top of the prisoner labor force, plus infrastructure construction. Total expenditure, 35,000 gold coins. I nodded. The mine is our lifeline. Non-negotiable. Item 2, the armory expansion. He flipped a page with the energy of a man reading his own funeral program. 40 new furnaces, 5,000 craftsmen and apprentices. Last month's wages alone. Just give me the total. Deep breath from Solank. These two projects combined, 23,000 gold coins. My finger tapping on the desk slowed down. That was higher than expected. Then there's the mountain tribe supplies. Solank continued, his voice sinking lower with every sentence like a ship going down. Per our alliance agreement, quarterly shipments of grain and medicine. First batch already sent, for 1,000 gold coins. And the mountain core itself, weapons, armor, supplies, payroll, my estimates show at minimum 20,000 gold coins per year. Oh, and Oak City construction hasn't even started yet. That's another massive bill waiting to happen. The study went quiet. Outside, a gardener was peacefully trimming hedges. Snip, snip, snip. The sound of someone whose job doesn't involve hemorrhaging gold coins. What's our current cash situation? I asked. Solank pulled out a third document from a locked iron box he carries everywhere. This man is a walking filing cabinet. 28,000 gold coins in the treasury. Roughly 150,000 silver. At our current spending rate, how long? 2 months. The words came out like he was squeezing them through a cheese grater. Then we hit the reserves. I walked to the window and stared at the sunset. The shadows of the courtyard pillars stretched long across the ground, which felt like a perfect metaphor for the financial shadow hanging over my head. Let me do the math that was currently giving me a migraine. The Solbright family's annual income is around 400,000 gold coins. Sounds massive, right? Wrong. Because we spend almost half of that just maintaining 50,000 professional soldiers. That's 200,000 gold coins on payroll before we buy a single sword or feed a single horse. Our two biggest revenue streams are our trade caravans and grain sales. The Solbright trade operation is enormous. Thousands of merchants organized into multiple teams covering the entire kingdom and neighboring countries. We even trade with the Dos Grasslands nomads. That's where Night Shadow came from. Some noble's caravan bought him from the Ulan tribe. And grain? The south is basically the breadbasket of the entire kingdom. Flat, fertile plains, plenty of water, massive harvests. We produce so much food that we can't even eat it all. Mountains of grain just sitting in warehouses rotting every year because there's literally too much. We export huge quantities to the food-poor northern territories. The Solbright family is short on many things. Grain is not one of them. We could probably drown in grain. But grain doesn't pay for iron mines, armory expansions, mountain armies, and trade city construction all at the same time. And that was my problem. We need to cut spending, Solank said carefully. I suggest pausing Oak City construction and reducing the mountain tribe supplies. And oh, I cut him off like a sword through butter. Both of those are long-term investments. Cutting them now destroys everything we've built. Solank looked like a man watching his retirement fund burn. Then, what do we do, young master? I turned around, sunset gold framing my silhouette in what I hoped was an inspiring pose and not a panic attack disguised as leadership pose. Give me 3 days. I'll figure it out. But young master, Solank, warm voice. Iron eyes. I understand how serious this is. 3 days. He bowed deeply, gathered his pile of devastating paperwork, and shuffled out looking about 10 years older than when he walked in. The door closed. I dropped into my chair and grabbed my head with both hands. Okay, reality check. I'd been so busy being a military genius that I forgot the first rule of warfare from any timeline. War is economics. Armies march on gold, not glory. You can have the best soldiers, the best weapons, the best strategy, but if you can't pay for it, you have nothing. I'd launched approximately 17 expensive projects in 3 weeks. Iron mine development, armory expansion, and assembly line conversion, crossbow, secret weapons, program mountain core of 10,000 warriors, quarterly tribal supply commitments, Oak City construction, upgraded soldier compensation packages. Each one was brilliant individually. Together, they were bankrupting me. And here's the terrifying part. The family reserves might look big, hundreds of years of accumulated soul-bright wealth, but one real war would burn through them in months. War machines eat gold like fire eats oxygen. If the succession crisis explodes while I'm broke, I needed to make money. Not save money, make money. New revenue streams. Fast ones. 3 days. I gave myself 3 days to solve a financial crisis that would make most grown nobles cry. No pressure for the 14-year-old acting duke, right? Huh. Ha ha. I need a drink. But I'm 13, so I'll have juice and think harder. 3 days to solve a financial crisis. Clock's ticking. Brain spinning. I was pacing around the study like a caged animal when my eyes landed on a dusty book on the shelf. Southern Territory Resource Guide. I grabbed it, flipped to the grain chapter, and started reading. Annual surplus. Approximately 200,000 stone of wheat, 150,000 stone of barley. That's roughly 32 million pounds of wheat just sitting around being extra. And then I hit the line that changed everything. Approximately 30% lost to mold due to improper storage. We're throwing away 10 million pounds of grain every year because we literally have too much and it goes bad before we can sell it. I slammed the book shut so hard dust exploded off it like a tiny mushroom cloud. Alcohol. I need to make alcohol. How did I forget this? In my past life, I grew up in a distillery family. I was smelling fermentation vapors before I could walk. Sure, I chose military academy over the family business, but the knowledge never left my brain. Every recipe, every technique, every trick my grandpa ever taught me, it's all still in here, locked and loaded. And here's the kicker. This world's alcohol is garbage. Their beer is basically slightly alcoholic water. Their fruit wine tastes like someone apologized to some grapes. The strongest drink on this continent would barely qualify as light beer back on Earth. If I could produce actual hard liquor, distilled spirits with real punch, I'd have a monopoly on a product that doesn't even exist yet. Plus, high-proof alcohol is a strategic military resource. Wound disinfection, surgical sterilization. The medical applications alone would save hundreds of soldier lives. My brain went from financial panic to I'm about to become the richest person on this continent in approximately 4 seconds. I sprinted to my desk, grabbed fresh parchment, dipped my quill, and started drawing distillation equipment blueprints from memory. Copper pot still, condensation coil, collection vessel. The design flowed out of my hand like I'd drawn it yesterday. Someone get in here. My bodyguard Carl appeared instantly. Yes, young master. Find me the best carpenter in the castle. The best one. Also, have the kitchen send up a barrel of our finest ale. Half an hour later, old master carpenter Oleg was standing in my study, staring at my blueprints like they were written in alien. His weathered fingers traced the curved copper tubing. Young master, this cylindrical thing is a still. Copper interior fits perfectly inside a wooden barrel housing. This curved pipe must be completely sealed. Airtight. Oleg scratched his white hair. I've been woodworking for 40 years, and I've never seen anything like this. What's it for? Brewing. I gave him my most mysterious smile. Or more precisely, revolutionizing brewing. Right on cue, the kitchen delivered our house ale. I poured a cup and took a sip. My face immediately did something involuntary. This stuff was watery, vaguely sour, and about as alcoholic as a strong opinion. On Earth, this wouldn't qualify as beer. It barely qualified as a beverage. Get me the brewery manager. Now, Harold, the brewery boss, showed up red-faced and panting to find his teenage lord grimacing at multiple barrels of ale, a confused old carpenter holding weird blueprints, and an atmosphere of imminent revolution. Harold, what's your brewing process? Traditional method, young master. Malted barley, dried and ground. Add water for conversion. Ferment for 7 days. What's the alcohol content? The what right? This world doesn't have the concept of alcohol percentage. They literally don't know what makes drinks stronger or weaker. I rephrased. How much grain makes how much ale? And how much does someone need to drink to get drunk? 1 stone of grain makes 5 barrels. Getting drunk takes about half a barrel. I did the math and nearly cried. The efficiency was pathetic. My family's distillery back on Earth could get a bottle of strong liquor from 5 pounds of grain. These people were using 160 pounds to make 5 barrels of flavored water. Starting today, the brewery is under MY direct control. We're testing a new method. 3 days of absolute chaos in the brewery. Oleg and his apprentices worked around the clock building my first distillation apparatus. Copper pot, bent condensation tube, cooling water jacket, collection vessel. When it was finished, it smelled like metal and pine and the future. Harold stared at it like I'd built a spaceship. My lord, will this actually work? I didn't answer. Just poured regular ale into the still. Light the fire. Low heat. Keep it gentle. As the temperature rose, something magical happened. Aromatic vapor crept through the copper tube, hit the cold water cooling section, and condensed into drops of crystal-clear liquid that fell into the collection jar. Drip, drip, drip. Harold's eyes went the size of dinner plates. What? What? I asked that. The liquid was perfectly transparent. Not cloudy like ale. Not tinted like wine. Clear as mountain spring water. I took a tiny sip. Hello. Now that's alcohol. Not perfect yet. Needed more refinement. But the burn, the warmth, the intensity was leagues beyond anything this world had ever produced. Not pure enough, but we're on the right track. I turned to my slack-jawed brewery workers. Remember this process. Fermented liquid goes in, gets heated, the essence rises as steam, gets cooled back into liquid. What comes out is concentrated. Powerful. 7 days of experimentation later, adjusting temperatures, refining the process, doing multiple distillation passes, the first batch of real spirits was born. I poured it into crystal bottles and called the senior staff for a tasting. Sir Reynard took one sip and turned the color of a sunset. He coughed so hard his armor rattled. By the gods, this isn't alcohol. This is liquid fire. Solank, my perpetually worried finance officer, took the tiniest possible sip. His old foggy eyes suddenly blazed like someone had plugged him into lightning. My lord, this will sell for a fortune. I swirled the crystal glass, watching the clear spirit leave perfect legs on the glass walls. I'm calling it Silver Eagle Flame. 1 stone of grain produces only 2 bottles. But 1 bottle can knock a grown man unconscious. Little Kahir, curious as always, sneaked a tiny taste. His eyes immediately flooded with tears. Brother, this is insane. Will anyone actually buy this? The northern nobles will go crazy for it, I said with absolute confidence. Imagine, you're in the frozen north, snow up to your waist, wind cutting through your bones. You take 1 sip of Silver Eagle Flame, and suddenly your entire chest is a furnace. Solank was already hammering his abacus like a man possessed. If we use our surplus grain, we could produce 50,000 bottles per year. At even 1 gold coin per bottle, 5 gold coins per bottle, Solank's abacus stopped. 5, minimum. First release, only 1,000 bottles. Crystal packaging. Silver Eagle family seal stamped on every cork. This isn't a drink. It's a luxury status symbol. Only nobles and wealthy merchants get to touch it. But the packaging costs. That's exactly why it's valuable. We're not selling alcohol. We're selling prestige. The kind of thing a duke puts on his dinner table to show he can afford what others can't. 5 gold coins times 50,000 bottles. That's 250,000 gold coins per year. From rotting grain that we were throwing away anyway. Financial crisis? What financial crisis? After the meeting, I stood alone in the brewery under moonlight. 10 brand new distillation sets gleamed on the workbenches, ready for mass production starting tomorrow. I invented hard liquor. On a continent that thinks warm beer is fancy. My past life grandpa would be proud. My past life military instructors would be confused. And every noble in the kingdom is about to develop a very expensive drinking habit courtesy of House Soulbright. Silver Eagle Flame. Coming soon to a noble's table near you. Bring money.